on, bro, and you know Miami traffic is. I got things going on. Well, I ended up doing something that night too, Chuck. When I talked to you, I said, look, bro, I'm over here. I had to go. I think I had reservations or something. I was at.
All right. Yeah, this Christopher Lovejoy 600, man. He said he was in Miami after Chuck's Deuce Sims hit him up for a fade or for a fight. And, he was on business. He ain't had time for all that, man. And he told Deuce Sims to produce this wack100 paperwork. He said Spider Loc already admitted that he was lying on Wack. And, the paperwork that he got on Wack and CS2 back, he's saying only one person got locked up on that case. Wack didn't rat on that case, so why he keep making
out the facts? And him and Spider Loc know it was one person done case on that time. I mean, the done time. I'm saying that, Chuck. I'm gonna be real with you. You did say, let's just get some content, and I respect that. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to make time to pull up on Chuck. But I had so much going on, bro, and you know Miami traffic is, and I got things going on. Well, I ended up doing something that night too, Chuck. When I talked to you, I said, look, bro, I'm over here. I had to go. I think I had reservations or something. I was at Mastro. I had something going on. I said, bro, I got reservations. I'm like, I didn't have time, you feel me? But you know what's crazy, man? Me and Chuck have a back and forth. And Chuck likes to lie on Wack, right? When Chuck know Wack man never been on my paperwork. That's the only thing that's holding Chuck back from getting a real salute. You feel what I'm saying? That's the only thing, bro. You feel what I'm saying? Because I know it's some riders from his hood. You feel what I'm saying? It's some riders from his hood. And, you know, niggas don't play with people's name without the facts. And him and Spider Loc know it was one person done case on that time. I mean, the done time on that case. And we talked to him, bro. You feel what I'm saying? Wack was a target. You know what I'm saying? So, but they just be making up stuff, bro. You feel what I'm saying? Like, and that's cool. Y'all get along. And Spider Loc said the only reason he trolling Wack and lying to him, me lying to him. The only reason he lying to Wack is like him. So, Chuck, if you're still on here, why are you lying to Wack, bro? I thought y'all was down moves. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought like it's a different type of, you know what I'm saying, thing y'all got going on, you know what I'm saying, just on the down move tip, like, you know what I'm saying, like, I would think like if niggas is down moves, like we gonna play this different, you know what I'm saying, paperwork and all that. So I'm thinking like, you know what I'm saying, as an outside looking in, it's some type of rapport there, you feel what I'm saying, some type of respect, taking order, something, rules, you know what I'm saying, but it's just like, and I really, really believe Chuck is just on the wrong side right now. You feel what I'm saying? I believe that Chuck is gonna realize he should have never messed with Big U. You know what I'm saying? But it's gonna be too late because once you burn bridges, them dudes ain't really like, well, I can't see Wack being cool with you. Like, see, once Wack cut you off, it's not coming back. You know what I'm saying? Me, on the other hand, I'm gonna see things differently. You feel what I'm saying? I'm gonna say, you know what? Chuck calls me a crip cop. You know what I'm saying? He disses me here and there, but he don't really get too disrespectful. And even though I'm not a cop, I can say that's a lie. He don't come with just the lying stories on me. You know what I'm saying? So I got a little bit of respect because, you know what I'm saying, I don't believe you told, bro. You know what I'm saying? That go a long way with me. You know what I'm saying? But your credibility's down. You made fake paperwork on yourself. It's a lie. You lying on Wack. So your credibility's like all the way. Like you would have to come back up and say, you know what? I did make fake paperwork on myself. I lied on Wack. It's still brand though, blood. You know what I'm saying? Like if you was to do that, I think niggas would be like, you know what? Chuck's out. You know what I'm saying? Like if you was like, yeah, I lied, blood. On Rams, I lied, but you know, we like you was to come with something like that. You know what I'm saying? I think that, you know, niggas will rock with you, bro. You know what I'm saying? I believe so. And I'm telling you, if you was to come out and say, I know Wack ain't see us too bad. I know Wack ain't never told. I was riding on the wrong side. And I'm admit my wrong. If you was to say that, I'm gonna give you a salute, bro. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like if you was to be like, you know what? I'm a diamond on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I lied on him. If you would say that, because listen, there's nothing wrong with trying to, you know what I'm saying, come back, huh? You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with that, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, there ain't nothing wrong with, like I say, some people make mistakes, huh? And you might have been influenced. You feel what I'm saying? You might have been influenced, bro. And it's okay. You know what I'm saying? It's fine. See, I'm more understanding. I can't say Wack will never be cool with you. Certain people ain't letting certain girls when they lie. It is what it is. Whoa. Chuck, you going too far. You said we don't want your salute? I'm only talking about you, bro. You want me to expose the busters that you be with? You want me to expose the busters you hang out with, bro? I was only talking about you. So where's the we at? There's no we. I don't know who you are we referring to. You want me to expose the busters? or what? Is this I got receipts. Or just let it be. Just let it be. Just let it be. Because you know what? They're gonna be mad at you. You know what I'm saying? Like they're gonna be mad at you. And like, man, why you do that, bro? Just let 600 do him, man. You know he don't care. You know what I'm saying? So just let it be what it be, bro. Oh, look. What y'all been doing over there, bro? I haven't seen y'all pop up, man. Y'all still in the algorithm? I'm gonna be real with you. 4 or 5 months ago, I would see y'all stuff pop up. I don't really see it pop up no more. I'm just being real with you. That's why I'm asking you. What y'all been doing? You know what I'm saying? And you know what? We still do for a one-on-one interview, not a one-on-one fight, Chuck. I'm not talking about that. We still do for a top game session. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, so we got C-Son talk about the CS2 back. He say Wack ain't CS2 back. And Duse is lying on Wack. Spylo admitted that. And yeah, he just basically saying, well, he lying on Wack. He called him a crip cop and for 8 months. And you know what I'm saying? But you know, they just smut each other out and all type of shit. But let me show you Greg Kading.
Back to Tupac or Biggie's murder. I mean, nobody lies more than Suge Knight. And so I take everything that he has with a grain of salt. Most of what he says is pure speculation. It's just based on stories he's heard and just hearsay.
Now, welcome to the next show. Everyone, welcome to another sit down with Michael Francis. Hope everybody's doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end. As always, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to our God for that because he deserves it all. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope you enjoyed the Suge Knight interview from his prison cell and get a lot of comments about it. And, you know, a lot of people understand Suge, some people don't. But hey, you know what? We try to sit down and we give people an opportunity to talk. And I think Suge was very forthright in this interview. And before I go any further, I have a very interesting guest today. I'm going to tell you who it is. But for those of you that want to be part of the community, michaelfrancis.com/family. We have people joining daily. And believe me, people, you're going to enjoy it. We put a lot of resources in there. If you want more of me, that's the place to go. We're doing Zoom calls. I'm putting resources and courses in there. We're going to have private meetings. We're doing Q&As. We got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, but this is Michael Francis, YouTube. You can go subscribe to YouTube if you want to. He talking to Greg Kading about this talking Greg Kading about this Tupac case, Suge Knight.
Knowledge about a case and some people that are certainly in the news as of late, and I look forward to speaking with you.
Likewise, Mike. Great to be here with you too, man. Thanks for having me on your platform, and I'm learning as we go too. So every day seems to be a new revelation with some of these characters out there that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and you know, before I got to ask you this, Greg. You're out here in Los Angeles. Have you ever investigated any of my old acquaintances or old associates? I would say.
No, nobody from any kind of traditional mob background. I've done some racketeering cases in Los Angeles, some RICO cases in Los Angeles, but nothing with like the traditional mob or any type of extension of the Italian mob. Never. That always seemed to be a little bit more East Coast type of activity.
Well, without demeaning anybody out here, it doesn't matter. We used to, from back east, we used to call the LA guys the Mickey Mouse mob. So
I have to tell you though, this guy right down the street from me, his name's Dave Bonanno. And he's got this picture of him and his uncle in the garage, and he's I guess a descendant or an extension of the Bonanno family. And so he often tells me about some of the shenanigans that his uncle was involved in out here in California.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, they had a presence here. Obviously, after they were asked to leave New York, I'll put it politely, they took up spot there in Phoenix, but they did have some.
I'm fast forward this part.
There, obviously, it's somebody like yourself that weeds through everything and gets to the bottom of it, and hopefully the truth with all these investigations. But there is a lot out there, and where there is smoke, there is some fire. And knowing Diddy the way you do from your investigation, what is your feeling about all this that's coming out now? Because it's so hard for me to understand how something like this, if it's true, and all this stuff that Diddy is involved in, how it can go on for 20 years. It's we couldn't get away with things like that for 20 years, but how something like that can go on for 20 years is really beyond me. Maybe you could give me some insight. Case was, huge news at one time, and I've seen you on some other podcasts, and you have very masterfully laid out, the investigation and what part you played in it. You were the lead investigator, so I'm not going to get into all of that because I think people know about that. An interview with Suge Knight from prison, and he made the allegation that Diddy's been an informant for 20 years.
Yeah, everything that Suge said ought to be taken with a grain of salt. I mean, nobody lies more than Suge Knight. Suge Knight is one of the biggest hypocrites I've ever met throughout this whole entire story as it relates back to Tupac or Biggie's murder. And so I take everything that he has with a grain of salt. Most of what he says is pure speculation. It's just based on stories he's heard and just hearsay and all of that. And again, we kind of, as Christian men, ought to be careful about falsely accusing people, because even when those things turn out to be untrue, the damage is already done just by, you can't unring a bell of an accusation, even when you're proven innocent later. And so I think that we just have to be really careful about acquiescing with people who base all of their information on gossip, innuendo, and speculation like Suge does. I looked at everything regarding Diddy all the way back throughout the 90s. One of the last things our task force did in Los Angeles was went out to New York, met with a DEA agent named Eric Henderson, who was spearheading the investigation into Bad Boy Records. And they let us go through their files with a fine-tooth comb. And I looked through every single piece of paper that they had regarding their investigation of Bad Boy Records. And I did not see a single thing that would suggest that Puffy was ever an informant. Not a single thing. And that would have been in there. This was all confidential DEA and government documentation. And there would have been something in there. And we didn't. And furthermore, the most obvious is if he was an informant, then he would have been providing information on the cases that we approached him on.
That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, what do you think about this? I don't know if it's new evidence, but with Dwayne Davis, making the allegation that Diddy paid him $1 million, to put the hit on Tupac. Do you find any credence with that?
I do. When he first told us that back in late 2008, early 2009, everything else he told us, we were able to substantiate. And so that lends credence to anything that, furthermore that he says. And when he told us about the solicitation for Tupac's murder, it made sense within the context of the ongoing rivalry that was taking place between Puffy and Suge, Biggie and Tupac, and the gangs that they were affiliated with. So there's already a well-established history. And so once he tells us that, Puffy was scared to death, he knew he had a target on his back every time he came to LA, Suge's goons were, trying to track him down, he had kidnapped somebody, and furtherance of trying to find out where Puffy's mother and family lived. So all of this led to support or substantiate the claims that Keith Davis was making about Puffy's solicitation. Originally, I thought that the solicitation was somewhat just an expression of exaggeration. Like, man, these motherfuckers are breathing down my back. They want me dead. When they go and he gives us this explanation of the solicitation, I thought that perhaps Puffy was just really desperate and afraid. He's like, man, I'll give you whatever you want to take care of these guys. I just don't want to have to come into LA and, look over my shoulder. So I thought it was that. But as things unraveled in the last decade, I'm seeing a completely different character and nature of Puffy that I didn't take into consideration at that time. Now I see maybe he's capable of doing something as direct and intentional as what Keith D was saying happened.
Well, it's I have some contacts in the industry, and going way back, they said that Puffy really wasn't involved in any. He wasn't a gangster at that time. He wasn't involved in any gangs. He was really a music guy. And then somehow this feud between him and Suge started, and that's when he started to kind of take on security and the guys of this gangster rap stuff. But initially, that wasn't him. He was a guy that just wanted to create music. And going back, do you have insight as to how this rivalry really began?
There's a couple different versions of how it all began. Originally, everybody was somewhat friendly with one another. And then the two labels, one from the East Coast, one from the West Coast, Bad Boy and Death Row, they began to want to encroach on each other's territory. Bad Boy wanted to open up a Bad Boy West out here in LA, Suge's backyard. Death Row wanted to open Death Row East, in New York, which is Puffy's backyard. And so slowly and surely the animosities began. But it wasn't until an individual named Jake Robles, who was a bodyguard of Shows, a close friend of Shows, was shot and killed by an associate of Puffy Combs's in Atlanta outside of a nightclub. As soon as Puffy's bodyguard shot and killed Suge's bodyguard, now blood was on the ground. Now it's an actual feud where there's nowhere to go but, towards retaliation.
So that's where it started then. Two bodyguards shot at one another.
One shot and killed the other.
Oh, okay, I got it. And that was back in Atlanta?
That was in Atlanta. And this was what, it was 1995, I believe it was.
And then Tupac was shortly after that, and then Biggie shortly after that. Within a year.
Yeah, Tupac killed in September of 96 and Biggie killed in March of 97. But there was all kinds of other drama and hostility and gunplay that had taken place in between those individual events.
Well, Greg, let me ask you this. This is interesting. In investigating these rappers and all this gangster rap, they seem to, they certainly had a different mentality than I did and my former associates back in the day. They seem to want to be known and want to be seen and want to, display the fact that they were part of a gang. Where on the other hand, most of us, maybe you could look at John Gotti as an exception, guys that were so high profile. We tried to stay out of the limelight. That's not something that we thought was good for us. But they had a whole different way of carrying themselves. Did you see that? Over the past 25 years, I've had the chance to meet personally with thousands of people, speak to millions, between my in-person appearances and online. And the one. And the team that I created that I know you're going to enjoy.
Specifically here, they didn't have the type of organization and sophistication that you guys had. These were street gangs, and they kind of flew by the seat of their pants. There was really no code of honor. There was really nothing other than, hey, we grew up around each other. We got each other's backs. We're all just trying to survive, but there wasn't really structure to it. And so I think that's a big difference when people try to compare what a street gang might be to what, an organized crime organization would look like. And in your investigation,
were you able to turn a lot of people, flip a lot of people, create a lot of informants?
Absolutely. And we say this all the time, everybody has a number. You get them pressed up against a wall and there's a number that they aren't willing to do insofar as a prison term. And when they need to wiggle themselves out of it, more often than not, they do by providing information to the law enforcement.
And let me ask you this, Greg, regardless of, and this is something I learned, regardless of, all of the advancements in technology and video surveillance and everything, most of these cases don't survive without witnesses, without informants. Would you find that to be true?
Absolutely. Yeah, informants are still one of our strongest tools.
Let me ask you this, in all of this, talk that's going on, all these allegations being made about Diddy, do you see him acting in the way they're portraying him now? Because obviously he's denying everything. There's been lawsuits filed against him, and some of the stuff is pretty bad what they're saying. But do you see him as that type of character, number one? And number two, do you have any insight into this? I know you're out of that right now, but I'm sure you still have your hand in the, the flies on the wall, so to speak.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's an interesting time. Much of the behavior that we are accusing him of, for lack of a better term, these kind of bacchanalia type of parties, this goes back to antiquity. Aside from pride, sexual misconduct is one of the devil's greatest tools, right? And we see people getting compromised via that all the time. So I don't know, the parties, the freak offs, whatever, hey, behind closed doors, if everybody's consenting adults. Now, if it goes beyond that, where there's crimes being committed, where people are being coerced, blackmailed, taken advantage of, or they're underage, well, now that's a different conversation. And I think it's important to kind of separate the two instead of putting them all into one thing, like, hey, these massive sex parties. Well, let's individualize this, who's really a victim, and then go from there. So I think that, and also, Mike, we're rewriting much of what is and isn't socially acceptable. 10, 15 years ago, flying prostitutes in from another state to go to a party and attend to the men in that party, we didn't think of that as sex trafficking. We thought that was just prostitution. And that's what we considered it, kind of like a victimless crime. We don't look at it that way anymore. Now we look at these willing participants who are, making financial gain. We still look at them now as victims. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. I'm just saying we're rewriting some of the definitions of what is and what isn't criminal, or what is and what isn't socially acceptable.
Now, has the law changed with respect to the way these people are viewed now, or is it basically the same statutes as the same law.
It's just a reinterpretation of law. And so it has changed in that sense that, you know, again, using that example of flying prostitutes from Las Vegas to New York, say, and having them conduct, you know, sex for money. Yeah, it's a crime, but nobody really considered that sex trafficking. Now that's a buzzword in which everybody is, for good reason, very much against. But we're reinterpreting what these things actually are and how they should be perceived through law enforcement.
And what's your view? Yeah, it does. What's your view on that? How do you view it personally?
I personally, you know, if you know, prostitution obviously is the oldest profession of mankind, and if it's consenting, willing adults, I don't look at it necessarily as this crime that needs to be addressed with all of the fervor that we are now. However, if people are being taken advantage of, if they're being, you know, they're vulnerable people, they're being enticed with drugs or through blackmail or through coercion, then yeah, that has to be addressed. People shouldn't be able to use power against other people. In that sense, I guess. I'm not sure. I haven't really thought that out very well. That I think there's an overemphasis on some of these things that we didn't used to consider, you know, major crimes.
Let me ask you this. What do you think of the situation in LA now with these progressive, well, we had a progressive district attorney, he'll be gone from what I understand, he lost the election. What do you think about the situation, Greg, not only in LA, but in most of these, you know, blue state cities, these sanctuary cities? What's your feeling on them now?
I think they get what they asked for. You know, if they want to have these liberal, progressive lawmakers and crime goes through the roof and nobody's being held accountable for their criminal activities, then the community suffers. You know, the communities are victimized. And in time, they realize that this isn't working, and then they try to recover from it, which is exactly what Los Angeles and other blue cities are trying to do now, is address this rampant crime problem that soft on crime policies has created.
Well, we know it's certainly not the fault of the LAPD and all these other, you know, police departments around the country that have been, you know, handcuffed in a way. I mean, you know, listen, you know, Greg, I'm from the street, and people have asked me, "Oh, Michael, you must be happy, or you would have been happy." I said, "Yeah, back in the day, I might have been happy. You know, if obviously if law enforcement was softer on crime when I was on the street, but you know, being a practical person and being a father and a husband and a grandfather, you know, I always said, listen, you know, when my kids walk down the street, I expect the police to protect them. I'm not looking to be soft on crime that way. We want our communities protected. We want our neighborhoods protected. And I just can't understand this mentality, the whole defund the police mentality, the whole soft on crime, being able to walk into businesses and steal $950 worth of goods and walk out with no prosecution, really no consequences. I don't know how we ever got to that point, but I know it's certainly not law enforcement's intent to have it that way. It's all these progressive DAs and you know, politicians that are creating it. It's just insanity. Hopefully we see a reverse of that now.
She first contacted me through Reggie and asked me to become head of his security. So I knew Sugar long before he got involved in all this stuff. He started hiring for his security Compton PD guys.
Right, that's what Ross.
I was raised in Watts area. I was living in Compton at the time, and I became an officer in 1979 in patrol. I was in the community. I knew most of these kids that was involved. If I didn't know them directly, I knew their family. But all of a sudden, we started getting the crime scenes that had 30 and 40 rounds on the ground, and realized these guys had got a hold of assault rifles. Oh, wow, we have a gang problem in LA County. The system wasn't allowing us to call ourselves gangs because they didn't want to give the gangs, you know, like DEA, the FBI, or DOJ. These guys weren't doing anything. I said Las Vegas wasn't cooperating with us that much. They kind of let it go. But that night, Tupac jumped in the car with Sugar. Well, gang culture, you know, you don't talk to the police, you don't give up that information. I'm getting involved because Reggie is calling me, so they shut it off. They shut it down. They didn't want to talk to me, or they wouldn't take my calls to give them the information that night. We hear the gunshots because of that. So I see this dude in the street, like trying to flag me out. I knew he had to be involved in that shooting. That's when he got killed.
I'm here with another senior figure from the Compton PD. We're going to be hearing more about being on the other side of the law when it comes to the gangs in the city of Los Angeles and Compton. I'm very excited to be sat down with Reggie Wright Sr.
Yes, sir.
And I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about your backstory and your history. So before we go any further, would you mind just explaining to me just who you are and where you come from?
Well, how far back you want me to go? I mean, I'm 78 years old. I could go back a long way. Or if you, speaking of just my Compton PD involvement, which one?
You were born in New Orleans, is that correct?
Yes.
So how did you and your family end up in Compton?
Well, as you just stated, I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, back in 1946. My father, when I was 11 years old, we had a pretty big family. It was a mom and dad, same mom and dad, good Catholics, who ended up with 17 kids. I had 16 siblings. But I was the third of the 17. And in 1957, my dad decided to come to California. A lot of people from the South were migrating to California. And my dad worked in the postal system in New Orleans. And he was able, with the help of one of his friends that came to California, to get my dad a position out here in Los Angeles. So my older brother and sister kind of stayed at home with my mom to kind of help with the other 4 or 5 siblings behind me. And me and my dad came out. And we lived out here in West Los Angeles area with my dad's friend until he got settled. And finally, about, I said, almost 9 to 10 months later, brought the rest of the family out here. And we lived in around, I would say, that's almost downtown LA, around 23rd San Pedro for a while, until my dad was able to get us over into a project in Watts area called Imperial Courts Housing Project. My dad had finished college at Xavier University, and one of his classmates was the manager of the Imperial Courts complex. So he got a, well, actually, we were trying to find an apartment that would accommodate us, because at that time, it was about 9 of us in total. So he needed a big place. So we were trying to get an apartment that can house worked there for about 11 years. I got to know the community and all that. And my cousin came over from LAPD. He was a captain there, and he became chief of police over there in Compton. But prior to that, I had gotten interested in it because some of the guys that were helping me out with my basketball program and taking kids all over the place with vans, in vans, they were Compton police officers. So I developed an interest in becoming that. But when my cousin came over, that really incentivized me to go for it. So I ended up taking a leave from the Edison Company, and that was in 1979. Well, actually, before then, I joined as a reserve officer, and I worked company as a reserve officer from 76 till I became a regular in 79. And then I just had to go back through the academy and get updated, and I became an officer in 1979 in patrol. I worked in patrol. I started off just a regular, rookie, but I had so much knowledge in terms of the community and what was going on in the community. And I was 33 years old then. So I was pretty mature. And then I had that reserve experience. Right about that time is when all the gang activity had initiated, the Pyru blood rivalry and all that had started when I was a reserve officer in 76. A lot of it really kicked off in 76. And so by my experience with the community and knowing a lot of the families in there, because part of my job at the Edison Company was to turn lights off and on and to go collect when people weren't able to pay. And I had a unique way of doing that because I came from, like I said, a project. And I remember my mom hiding from the collectors when we were living in the project. So I had an empathy for that a little bit, but I had to do my job. So in going to these families, if they weren't able to pay their bill and I had to terminate the light service, back then they didn't have all this technology nowadays. We either cut it at the meter or take the fuses out or what. But I would do that and write it out that they're off. But I would show somebody in the family how to turn it back on once I left. So I became a little famous for that, and the community loved me for it. So consequently, I knew a lot of their kids who eventually, when I became a police officer in Compton, and I had to deal with some of these gang members that I had dealt with their parents and knew about them, and their parents loved me, so they gave me a lot of respect. So in my career, like I said, I did patrol work as a rookie for about a year, but because of all this prior knowledge that I had in the community and dealing with it, I was put on a detail. At that time, this was about 80, 81. The activity was getting real crazy in the Compton area, but they weren't allowed the detail I was on was myself and a white guy who spoke fluent Spanish, named Steve Beckman. He was a kind of a veteran officer, and I became his partner, and they called us a graffiti detail. And at that time, the system didn't want to, or the county didn't want to say that you were gang, because they didn't want to give gangs that recognition that they were going to be eventually notorious. So the thing is, we were gang detail until about 82, I think, or somewhere around there. That's when the crack cocaine started, and the gang members started getting involved in the distribution and selling of the crack cocaine. That enabled them to have finances, money and stuff. So at that time, we didn't have any gun regulations when it came to assault rifles and automatic weapons and stuff. And what started happening is, because these guys had the money, they started buying all these assault weapons and stuff. And so that really kicked it up in about 82. That shootings that we were going to in the 70s with these gangs going at each other were more or less handgun shooting or something, or shotgun for that matter. But all of a sudden, we started getting the crime scenes that had 30 and 40 rounds on the ground, and realized these guys had got a hold of assault rifles, and AR-15 and all this different stuff. So anyway, that really kicked up the violence and made it really very tragic, the thing. But see, just getting a little bit into the mentality of gang members, and I'll talk a little more about it once I get off of me. But I was just mentioning how I got started and gained the knowledge to start dealing with the, how would you say, the coming up of the rivalry, the activities that were going on around us. And what I noticed and realized, and by knowing a lot of the guys in the community how they're coming up, that all of a sudden what became a big deal, like I said, was the shooting, the type of weaponry that was used during the shooting. The thing is that the mentality was different as this started happening, because when I was younger and stuff, saying raised in the projects and stuff, they had not gangs, because they wouldn't call them that, they call them social groups, like the Huns were in Nicholson Garden, the Imperial Course had Orientals, and the Jordan. These are three of the main housing projects in Watts area. They were called civilians. But we didn't get involved in none of that drive-by and all that. That wasn't even thought about, shooting people. We would have big fights on the gym field or whatever, and you would just go at it. They're like a rumble. And the most weaponry you may have is some brass knuckles or wood or something. I mean, it was deadly weapons, but in a sense, especially the bumper jacks, that was the extent of it. But you fought the enemy. The involved people were the people you wanted to be involved with. May the best man win. But then, around about that time, the Vietnam War had just ended or kicked up. But a lot of guys from the hood, as you would say, got drafted into the military in I'd say, the late 60s, early 70s. But most of them had gangster mentalities anyway when they went in. So they were drafted, but they got dishonorably discharged. But before they got discharged, they were trained. They were trained in this warfare. This hit and run, sit in the bushes and snipe at people, sniper weapon. That mentality came back to the hood. So some of them guys that were involved in that type of activity, start doing these drive-bys. So that's where that mentality comes, where they didn't face the enemy. And that's something that I really had a disdain for, because it was cowardly. But that kicked up. And then the sales of the crack cocaine during the early 80s and late 70s, early 80s, enabled them to have this kind of weaponry to go at each other. And so I had a little upper hand in that, because I was in the community. I knew most of these kids that was involved. If I didn't know them directly, I knew their family, their parents. So it enabled me to get a lot of intelligence, I built a lot of trust with them, because I knew what they were going through. Didn't condone it, but I knew what they were going through. So I related to them in a way that would enable me to get intelligence about what was going on with all this different stuff. That's kind of my background and how I got involved, took the knowledge to talk about what I want to tell you about the inception of the Crips and the Pirates, when all that really kicked off. But the origination, origin, I guess, the origin of first the Crips, who first came into our area, into the Compton area, had been started basically in the LA area, up around Washington High, and what was that? I would say that would be the southeast portion of the city in LA. And those guys started this Crip stuff. A guy named Raymond Washington and a couple of other guys, I forget the name, Mac Thomas. These are guys that were involved in this kind of stuff as I was coming on the department. And I didn't know them directly, but when it started coming to Compton, this gang thing and this more or less claiming Crips that got started by this group who, I don't know, it's a lot of stories about how it originally started. Some people say that Raymond Washington or somebody used to walk with a Crip. Like, you get that theory. I've heard some other theories you know. But the actual how the Crip name came about, I'm not even till today certain because there were so many theories. But it became a phenomenon, and it actually started in that area. But eventually, that came to the Compton area, and over when it first started, it was an area South Compton, southwest area of Compton, over by the airport. They had some apartments because in most of these gatherings or these groups that more or less started thuggerish or acting crazy or whatever, come out of how would you say, a dense housing area. It wasn't like good neighborhoods or something. They would come from either apartment complexes or a project or that. Over in Compton, they had a group of apartments, about 8 or 10 of them, that was in this little one called the Grandees. It was off of Grandee and Alondra. And a lot of the guys over there started hanging around, started claiming this Crip stuff in the Grandees. But then over in other areas of Compton, and I'm talking about 69, 70, around 70, that they start 1970, that I'm talking about. The Crips was centralized a little bit in Compton, the whole Compton part. And they started ravaging, started doing crazy stuff, attacking decent guys, kids that weren't even into that stuff. They started assaulting them and just taking it back, bullying, these Crips. So the thing is that a lot of kids didn't want to get caught up in that stuff, especially in the Compton area. And like I said, the Crips start dominating. On the west side of Compton, these were like 2-parent homes, urban, little decent tracts. And these kids didn't want to get caught up in that kind of stuff. So to be anti-Crip, that's when they start formalizing the group over on the west side, on Pyru Street near Central. And one of the main guys, and there probably were other guys that names I'm not throwing out, but mainly Sylvester Scott Puddin and Vincent Owens, the guys that lived on Pyru Street, started wanting to combat, more or less combat or become rivals of these Crips. So they were anti-Crip. So they started their little group, and they called themselves West Side Pyrus, or first just Pyru Boy. And then they went, since they were on the west side of Compton, other areas a little further out started claiming Pyrus in Compton. To also offset, and this all going down in 70, 71, not too far from each other. The Crips, they started because it was migrating from LA, this Crip phenomenon. But like I said, the Pyru thing started based on Pyru Street with these guys in the 72 or whatever. But even on the east side of town, up around Ludus Park area, and the high school over there was it is Dominguez High School, and their basic colors are red and gold. I forgot to mention that when the Crips started, Pyru started on the west side of Compton. The main high school there was Centennial, because basically there's only 3 high schools in the Compton area. Centennial, that's on the west end, that I'm about to talk about. The central areas where most of the Crips, if they didn't go to school, they went up to the school. They might didn't go to class. They were central at Compton High, which their colors were blue and white. And then from the east is Dominguez High School. Like I said, their colors were red and gold. Centennial was red and white. Okay, so those areas kind of adopted those red colors, where the Crips adopted the blue color. And that's where you came up with the blue rags and the red rags. And that's kind of all kicked up in 72. And they started having this kind of little rivalry. Okay, it got terrible because within it, like I said, they were able to get this weaponry, and they started doing these drive-bys and shooting at each other. But a lot about that time, that was the basic areas, I would say, like that started it. But then that's where in each side, individuals that wanted to become part of either a Pyru or part of Crips, they started having their sets named after streets, basically, that they came from. Like Crips, they were either Nutty Block or In Hood or this little area type thing to separate and get their own identity as being a different part of the Crip organization, for you will. But then on the west side, as I said, and Putnam started this west side Pyru. So, and then eventually later on, they started having streets named like after Fruittown Pyru, which was streets that were like Elm Pear or Peach. Those streets, those guys started calling themselves Fruittown Pyru. Then you start having other areas, the little streets, Birds, this and that. Crips started, with their little, like I said, Nutty Block Crips, Spooktown Crips. Everybody started getting a set. But all that went on, and the rivalry and the shooting between the Crips and the Pyrus went real crazy from about 75 to about 1980 or something like that.
So am I right in understanding that there was actually a famous incident where a basketball game was shot up around 74?
Who?
Was it a basketball game at Compton High where there was a shooting?
No, you're probably talking about the incident at Dominguez High School. They had a basketball game there
Yes.
at Dominguez, and I think Dominguez High, like I said, with red and white, most of those guys claimed Pyru. And I forget who they were playing, but I think it was a thing that basically Crip. But at that game, the respective members of those two different sets were attending the game. So naturally, when they were there, it all jumped off. And somebody got shot or shots were fired. That started. But even that was about 75, 76. But they also had a big incident that kind of kicked up a lot of this in 76. Now, mind you, we had a few other shootings prior to this, but this is what we're about to talk about is what really kicked it off and got it, kick it out. But what I'm trying to say is they had a few other incidents, like a guy named Ray Johnson. I kind of remember, I think he was a cripple. I'm not even sure, but he got killed at that time. Just before, I think 74, just before that game we're talking about. That kind of stirred up a little mess between them.
And was there another famous shooting, I believe, at the Palladium, maybe a few years before that?
No, they talk about this Crip stuff at the Palladium is when Tookie Williams and Baby Boy and them, they were muscle bound cats. They were showing off at I think it was either the Palladium or Griffith or some venue in LA. And they were bullies and showing off. But somebody ended up getting, at that time, leather jackets were popular. And I guess some kids, decent kids that was there for the concert, got ripped off for the leather jackets. And I think somebody got beat down or shot or something, but it became, it was notorious. They noted it, and it was on the news and all that. So they didn't talk so much about it being a Crip thing. They talked about it as being some gang thing, or a bunch of things that took advantage of them. But the Crip phenomenon really started in 77 or something, because like I said, they were selling this cocaine and stuff. They were getting money to buy guns, but they also was having enough money to venture out of their neighborhoods and start going into LA, like the affluent areas, West Side, Beverly Hills, all this. And that venue, they went to a concert, some Crips, and ran into some blood, and a shootout occurred in Westwood. It was out in Westwood, and this young lady named Terry Tashima, I think she was an SC student or something, and they happened to be at the movie theater or something. She got caught in the crossfire and got killed, unfortunately. But naturally, that became, I'm trying to get my thought of notoriety. The notoriety became because of the way this incident occurred. And in that particular shooting, a few days afterward, and mind you, we were having this kind of warfare, killings and stuff in the Compton and South LA areas and stuff, but it wasn't getting any type of notoriety. That's how I wanted to come out with notoriety until this shooting occurred. Once Terry Tashima got shot, next thing I noticed, because I was working gangs then, I had kind of moved up a little bit, and because it was in the early 80s, and all of a sudden the next day in the papers and stuff, oh wow, we have a gang problem in LA County. There's over 30,000 gang members. All of a sudden the stats and the notoriety came out. I was like, wait a minute, where y'all been? Matter of fact, even in my own department stuff, the system wasn't allowing us to call ourselves gang because they didn't want to give the gangs the notoriety. So that's when all of a sudden we went from from a graffiti detail to a gang detail, and that started going the same way in LA and stuff. And it really took LA a while with their crash unit on it to want to identify those Crips, give them some notoriety. But anyway, that happened. And if you remember about the 80s, in the 1980s, the Cold War had kind of started. Came out on the Cold War. And I think about 80 something, you didn't have all this undercover agencies, that used to be government agencies that were deployed to deal with all that. I'm talking about the DEA, the FBI, DOJ. They started having acronyms I had never heard of before. These guys weren't doing anything. So they started assigning them to work this gang stuff, because all of a sudden now we got 8,000 gang members. So I remember getting a call when I was a sergeant over the gang unit from someone, a couple of agencies that said, hey, we got a couple of people, we want to start a task force to start working these gang shootings and all this stuff with your gang. So we started getting task force involved in FBI, DOJ. They even had DA. I didn't even know they had a DA, because they weren't dealing with drugs that much. It was proliferating, but my thing was the gang stuff. So they came in and got involved and started helping us try to suppress this. And that's when they started coming up with regulations to control this assault and these automatic weapons was helping. But during the interim, and like I said, it was getting vicious shootings and drive-bys between the two sets. Well, they had gotten so far into it that as life goes, they were fighting each other. But then it got so greedy and so violent that the sets, the Crip sets, and later on the Pyru sets, they start fighting within each other. You start having Crip on Crip warfare, Pyru, warfare. I mean, so it really got crazy and led up to all the way up until the 90s with all these serious shootings. And that's kind of like what kicked off and got real crazy.
It sounds like you know, in the 70s, like you say, the shootings started to rise. People began to wake up to the gang problem, and then it seems like in the 80s, because of crack cocaine, the gangs were able to access so much money that the violence went to another level. Is that accurate?
Yes, it did go to another level, but also it brought up a unique aspect. All right, now remember we talked about how violent it was between the gangs shooting at each other, doing the drive-bys and committing all this blood. Again, let me Spencer, don't let me lose that point. But I forgot to mention that Pyru's was a Compton thing. It is still today a Compton thing. But the red one started and moved into the LA area real big, but they didn't want to identify as Pyru's, like the Brims and 83rd. But they, because of the red, adopted, someone came up with this connotation of Bloods. So the gang members that were doing the same thing and all that in other areas of LA were known as Bloods. So the difference between Pyru's and Bloods, they both belong to the same mindset or concept and all this with the red rags and all that, but they didn't want to be. If you hear somebody talk about blood, you know, that's a set, that's out of Compton. If they want to talk about red, they may say Pyru or they will say Pyru if they Compton, but they say blood to each other, you know, because the connotation between that group was blood. Hey, blood, hey, this, blood, that. In the Crip side, it was Cubs. They had adopted the Cubs. So that's how you know kind of what's not necessarily set, but what division you're from, Crips or blood. That's kind of what's going on. But anyway, I was getting back to that point I was going to make about LA. Help me out, because
well, I was sort of getting onto how the crack epidemic kind of made the gangs very rich, and then things kind of escalated a lot.
Really escalated, especially the purchase of these assault rifles stuff, because now crack cocaine comes into the area. So naturally, the dealers are the people. I'm not gonna get into this Contra stuff, but that happened. That really happened with how they flooded the area with cocaine. But that activity is what emboldened these leaders of the Crips and our Bloods to have money and stuff, because they brought the cocaine into the area and they started distributing the cocaine in these areas. So now gang members was coming up. You used to have the pretty boys that was handling the cocaine in the area that was almost like pimp like, you know, they had the girls and all that. But they, all of a sudden, I guess whoever was distributing or bringing it, Contras or whoever the heck they were, people from, what the country? Not Venezuela, but Colombia. There you go. They were bringing it in, but they got smart. And in the jail system, they realized who the shot callers in the neighborhoods were. Okay? So they started meeting up in the jail system with these shot callers and telling them, hey, man, we got product we can get to it. And they started entrusting these products into these shot callers in Bloods, Pyrus, and Crips. And all of a sudden, they start really selling it into the communities, and that crack cocaine epidemic, went crazy. But it gave them finance. I mean, they became that. But greed gets everybody. And it got so bad that at some point, they were fighting each other and trying to start shooting each other. Dope dealers were shooting them, because when the system, these test forces, I thought I was cracking down on all that, realizing it, and they started cracking down on it, then
Let's go. All right, let's go.
Here in this arena will be.
Yeah, man, we got Reggie Wright Sr. talking about this. Crip and Blood starting in Compton, LA, the war, and how it kicked off in the 70s to the 80s to the 90s. How crime went up. Yeah, it's crazy, man. But yeah, we got Reggie Wright Sr. talking about this. Talking about his time as a police officer in the gang task force in LA, and the Crips starting and the Bloods starting, and how they got to warring with each other. And when the drugs came in and they got the drug dealing, they got the intensifying in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? When they got the selling crack, they got the intensifying the crimes. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we gotta keep watching, see what the fuck is on.
a lot of them in jail. So the guys that used to sell it or work for started robbing the dope dealers. In the late 80s, we had a lot of that activity. But as I'm saying, the greed and the money and all that brought on this thing where me and one of my partners, we were riding around in Compton, and one day we got behind a car, and in the front seat, we saw two shot-calling Crips. They were riding together, of course, but in the back seat, it was two shot callers in the back, Pyru shot callers. I'm not gonna say their name, but those, there was four of them in there. The two Pyrus in the back. And then I looked at my partner, Bobby Baker, who was a sergeant at the time with me. We looked at each other and go, but you know, they kidnapped him. We figured they had him at gunpoint in the car. So we pull them over, right? Carefully pull them over. We knew them, they knew us, me and my computer gang detail. So as I'm pulling them out the car, they go, oh, Reg, we cool. Cool, what's up? So Bobby pulled one of the Crips, the Pyrus to the side, shot caller. I pulled the two Crip leaders to the side. What the hell is going on? That's when one of my side told me, and Bobby had, they told him the same thing. Hey man, it's all about money now. It ain't about killing each other. We realized we gotta get away from there. We gonna be making money. You gonna say we gonna get along, Rick? Don't worry about it. You ain't gotta worry about all this shooting no more and stuff. So it's a good thing. Kind of okay. So I let him go. Bobby was very articulate. He was a damn Magnum cum laude from SC or something. Just wanted to be a cop, right? And he said, Rick, don't you see what's going on? They're bringing in all this dope and putting them in their hand, and now they making money. And sure enough, that brought it decreased some of the gang warfare because they started getting along, certain groups of them, to make money. But after they start making money behind this endeavor, after that, greed sets in because they say, wait a minute, we done made money. I'm in the bed with home for this Pyru, but they still was shooting my brother, and they still killed this. Pyru said, then the warfare started again between Pyrus and Crips because now, as you were saying, they all had more weaponry, all this and finance, and that got crazy. That was in the 90s. And it took us a little while to get all that calmed down. But that's kind of the mess that was going on in the separation.
So there's two really interesting things that happened in the 80s. Obviously, you had crack cocaine, but also the rise of gangster rap. You know, you had, I imagine you were policing the community when straight out of Compton, F the police.
Eric Wright. Everybody thought he was related to me. I'm Reggie. And they thought me and he was related.
Wow.
For a minute, I didn't know. when all that jumped off, when NWA started, how we were involved with it, a guy named Lonzo Williams, he was like the producer that was into this business that started concerts, a little hip hop things with NWA and all them. It was a place called Doodles in Compton off of Central. And he would have these, I would say Friday hip hop concerts and stuff with these guys to promote these rappers. But the thing is that he brought Crips and Bloods together attending these things. So we had to get involved in those because to keep them from shooting or beating up each other. But they would have not a ceasefire, but they kind of wanted to party and experience these new rappers that was coming along that was from kind of both sets. You know, the group like NWA and the Wrecking Crew and all that. Lonzo started hiring Compton PD guys off duty. And his cousin was one of us, Philadelphia. And so we started working the events to keep it as civilized as it could be, but still we had problems at them. But they branched out. And that's when they started doing videos and stuff in the area. But Eazy-E, Eric Wright, who was their first group, part of it, and then you had Dre and all of them that were part of the Wrecking Crew that had their little groups. But then from there, they started venturing out, and then Eazy eventually died. But yeah, a lot of it got started in Compton. And matter of fact, a lot of people questioned how we, the police, felt about like the Pyrus with DJ Quick and all that was going around talking about the police and dissing us on tracks and stuff. Matter of fact, one of my guys that worked for me, you talked to Lad before, and unfortunately we lost our buddy Tim Brendan. They call him Blondie. He was well known, and they would start getting on tapes and stuff like saying, "Oh, Blondie" and all this. But it was all, we used to call them guys studio gangsters because they weren't Easy and the Wrecking Crew and Ice Cube. You know, these cats that were part of the rap thing. They weren't about all this thinking against the police. They were trying to make money and they were trying to be hard. But then later on, as the rap thing started exploding a little bit, you start getting cats that became part of it that start wanting to be gangster. And so that's when the death row thing started, you know, in the East Coast with Diddy and all them. And then because of first dissing, what they used to call it, dissing on wax, you know, each group, it got to the point where it started getting violent in that East Coast, West Coast rivalry between Diddy and Suge and all them. So that's how all that just got wrapped up.
Well, that was going to be one of my next questions, because obviously you guys being hired to police the kind of community events where people playing rap music, it kind of seemed to evolve to the next level where, from what I understand, when Death Row Records kind of emerged and was making a lot of money, they were hiring a lot of police to come and be security for them. But then a lot of those guys were real gang members. So can you speak on how kind of Death Row and the police and the sort of music industry merged?
Yeah, but let me correct a point of it where they were saying some of the police officers that they start hiring to hire police officers were actually gang members themselves. No, that's not a fact. The thing is that, say for instance, Death Row I could talk a lot about because my son was part of that security and police thing when Death Row first started. Matter of fact, Suge and my son grew up where I lived about a block from where Suge was raised. And they both played football at Linwood. So I knew Suge long before he got involved in all this stuff. But then once all this developed and he started Death Row and stuff.
Craft together something special.
I've been pre-approved for a loan, but first I have to pay a deposit and gift cards.
Bad. Damn, one be great. But yeah, man, let me talk about this. Yeah, man, Reggie Wright Sr. Reggie Wright Sr. What the heck do that say? Hold on, Bill. Quiet. I'm gonna need a translator for that, dog. I don't know what that means. That's Spanish. That's Spanish. What?
My Peru guys or Lulu Park Peru guys that Suge had to hire or had part of his entourage and stuff like that. I used to call them the gangster security.
No español.
Okay, but then he knowing it was getting like crazy.
No español.
He needed some police, actual security. My son was a Compton police officer at the time, but he got hurt in an accident. Him and Suge was tight, so he got with Suge, and my son was starting a security business on his own called Right Way Security. So he got with Suge because Suge first contacted me through Reggie and asked me to become head of his security. I told him, no way. Ain't no way I'm gonna get involved. You don't do that. I said, furthermore, half of them guys that you were talking about, his entourage, and I call them gay. I told Suge, hey, I'm investigating some of them. I'm gonna be put in jail soon because they were thugs. They were out there, but they were working. He was trying to give them jobs and get them right, but that wasn't happening. You see, so that was the gangster security. But Reggie, who was starting his security thing, and Suge got together, he started hiring for his security Compton PD guys, okay, to work off duty. See, none of them were gang members, but I used to refer to that as the police security versus the gangster, and that's what Death Row had. Okay, now, but that evolved into different things and problems and shit. When Tupac came aboard, and then they had that, and it led up to the killings because of that east-west between Biggie and then with Tupac and Suge getting shot in Vegas, but that was a Crip thing that shot Southside with the Tupac and Suge thing, and then with the other situation with Biggie, naturally that was probably retaliation because of Tupac, and then just got messy. But that's kind of what got all that started. But you probably, I don't know if the audience know about the East Coast, West Coast rivalry, but I'm sure that's out there. But that's kind of how that developed because of
So we just touched on Death Row Records and their security situation. One of the major things that I wanted to ask you about was the death of Tupac Shakur, and especially the rumors of apparent chain snatching that took place in the lead up to his death. Can you tell me a little bit about that situation?
Oh yeah, that involved a kid named Trevon Lane as a member of the Mob Posse, who was a part of Suge's entourage, and that was at the fight. It was a fight between Mike Tyson and someone, and they were attending the fight. But prior to that, during the summer before the fight or sometime before the fight, well, all the members of Suge's entourage, basically, guys work with him, and some of the guys I talked about earlier is like his little security or whatever, guys from the neighborhood. They all had chains. Suge got a Death Row chain with the symbol, the guy in the electric chair with the gold chain and all that. The story was that East Coast doing that rivalry, that Diddy had put out a bounty or something on whoever can get him or bring him a Death Row chain from somebody would get a $5,000. So anyway, Trayvon was at a Foot Locker or something over in the Lakewood Mall in the area. And he was, I think he was by himself. I'm not sure. It could have been somebody else with it. But at the time that these guys saw him, it was some Southsiders. And one of them was a notorious Southsider by the name of Baby Lane. So Baby Lane, who was a nephew of KVD, and somebody else allegedly attacked. I shouldn't say allegedly, but according to Trayvon, attacked him and snatched the chain to get the chain. Now there's different stories coming out. At first, I thought they had gotten the chain, to try to turn it in for the bounty. But now some people are talking about he snatched it, but Trayvon was able to regain the chain, to get it back, in the melee. But they had kind of beat him a little bit, and he got away. So naturally, he came back to the hood and reported that these Crips, south side of Baby Lane, and whoever else was with him, snatched the chain. So anyway, that went by. So that was known. I guess the fight occurred right after that or something, to the point that now Tupac is part of, want to claim mob and getting into all that activity, and they go to the fight. But while they were in the hotel in the lobby or something, what should go out to is a Tupac part of it or something, Orlando Anderson, who was Baby Lane, he was at the hotel as well, walking through the lobby. And all of a sudden, Trayvon points to Orlando and say, "Hey man, that's the dude that snatched my chain. That's the dude that snatched the chain." Well, Tupac, wanting to show you down and all that, he was the first one to take off to war him. And then that's when the entourage went on, and he went and assaulted Baby Lane right there in front of the cameras and everything. And that started that little incident. Well, now naturally, since they done done anything or whatever, they get trying to get out of there. Suge, Tupac, and all of them, and they take off. But Baby Lane, he subsequently went back to the hotel where his his uncle, Keefy D, and they little guys, all the Southsiders got together, and now they're going to go and retaliate for the assault on Baby Lane. And then that's when apparently they were in this Cadillac and stuff, going, knowing that they was getting ready to open that Suge and them was that night was going to have an event at a club that Suge had just opened up called the Mob, 662, which on your telephone is MOB 662. So the club. Now my son, who was over security, was over at the club. He wasn't with Suge and them at the entourage, lead his security, because normally Reggie would have been riding with Suge would have been riding with Reggie, I should put it, or Suge drive, and Tupac would be in a different car. That wouldn't have happened. But that night, since I guess it was the rush to get away from there and stuff, Tupac jumped in the car with Suge, and they take off, at some point, and I guess went to Suge's house, changed, and then they start heading to the club for the event. But in the interim, Baby Lane and Keefy D and Bubble Up and Big Dre, all of them four in the Cadillac, they riding around looking. I think they even went up to the club to see if Suge, when they can, take a shot and retaliate. But they didn't. But at some point on their way back or something, still looking around, they see Suge and them in their little entourage in about 3 or 4 vehicles. And then that's when they pull up alongside of Suge and thing. And supposed to Dre, from what I understand, was supposed to be the one to do the shooting because they were on his side. But Orlando wanted it so bad, he grabbed the gun and reached over and shot into the car and shot both of them. That's the story. But that's kind of how, and it was all started off and kicked off because of that fight behind the chain situation.
It's one of the most kind of famous hip hop stories in history, and one of the most famous gang stories.
True story.
Something I wanted to ask you about, just with the fact that your son was kind of, working on the death row security situation. Did you ever worry about him? Were you ever kind of just concerned or nervous for him kind of being involved in that side, whether it was before or after the Tupac situation?
All the time, even when he first started working, because like I said, I turned down working because I knew that didn't mix. But my son, who was right there when I met with Suge, he knew he was starting his security business anyway. He was starting, wonder why, since I didn't want to take it, I didn't let tell Suge. But my son at that time, 30-something years old, started his own business. So when I got away from that, he and Suge got together, and Suge started hiring him in his security, lightweight security, to work for him. And that's when he became Suge. Everybody said he was Suge's bodyguard or something. It wasn't necessarily he was his bodyguard. He was just over security, and he spent most of his time with Suge. And that's kind of like that. But yeah, all that went down. There's a whole lot of stories behind that. I mean, somebody out on the internet now talking about I was at the fight that night, and I was part of the crowd, and I was bodyguarding somebody. I was at home sleep. When the stuff jumped off, Reggie called me at home and told me both Suge just got shot and Tupac, and he thought Tupac was dead at that time, but Tupac died 2 or 3 days later or something. But that kind of how that went down that night and stuff. But
So something I was curious about, obviously a little bit of time passes, Biggie's killed as well, which you said, may have been in retaliation. But I've heard stories, you can tell me whether this is true or not, but in the aftermath of Tupac being killed, it didn't happen in Compton or Los Angeles, but in the weeks that followed, I heard there was a lot of shootings that were kind of connected.
That exactly happened. Let me tell you about my not involvement, and because how they jumped off. Well, naturally, that night when it all went down, the police had to get involved, but we talking about a homicide, and well, they didn't know it was a homicide, but attempt on my boy in this fight, and all this is going to be really, how is it, notorious. Shooting is going to be all over the news and all that. That particular night, naturally, when the police started investigating and get involved, they hear about this Reggie Wright that's over security, who wasn't there, but he contacted them, and they kind of talked. I'm talking about the investigator, not the patrol guy, and they wanted to get information about the shooting. Well, gang culture, you don't talk to the police, you don't give up that information. So Reggie, the kids, the guys that were in the entourage, the other cars and stuff that eventually chased the shooters off and chased after them, the police wanted to get their story. But you don't talk, and you should probably wasn't going to allow them to talk. So when they heard that Reggie Wright was over security and he talked to them and he couldn't get them to come and talk to the police, well, Reggie Wright is taboo, or he's part of it or something. I'm getting involved because Reggie is calling me knowing that I know about all this and it's going to come back to the city, like getting to your original question. He called me and started telling me, hey, man, there was Orlando and them behind this. They got in a fight because they saw the chain, saw Orlando and all that. He says, but it's them, So I'm into that right now. So I started trying to call that night, 2 o'clock in the morning, as the lieutenant. I started calling Las Vegas PD to tell them, hey, man, I got information who we're looking for and all that. But when they heard it was Reggie Wright, they thinking it's my son or me that's calling. So they shut it off. They shut it down. They didn't want to talk to me, or they wouldn't take my calls to give them the information that night. So the next morning, when those guys got back to Compton, and the Bloods knew, the mob knew that they did the shooting, well, all of a sudden, they started retaliating the next morning. And they started a shooting where they saw one of the Southside members who wasn't out there in Vegas that I know of, named Darnell Brim. Darnell coming out of a store. This is 10, 11 o'clock the next morning. And they shot at Darnell. Unfortunately, it hit a little girl as well. I think she survived. I don't think it was a murder. But standing there on business, I want to reach that ball.
Facts. Yes, they're staring at your Tumblr. Yes, they're jealous. It's a big bite, it's a big life.
All that started. Then, after shooting Brim, the Southsiders came to the Blood area that night and shot, and they killed 2 of them. So we about to start all this investigation. But because of the Reggie Wright being involved and to the point of it, and I usually lead that type of investigation, the chief thought it was best to pull me off of that case directly in the investigation, and for me to put my sergeant, Bobby Baker, the one I told you being able to get, who was my sergeant, in charge. So I wasn't directly involved in it, but we started having shootings for the next 3 days, back and forth between Pirus and Southside. And I think we had several murders on each end and all that. So as a result of that, we had to crack down on both gangs. That's when we did a big, search warrants on each group. That Blondie and Lad kind of, did the warrants and stuff. And we started doing warrants at the houses and taking guns from both groups to kind of settle that down, that back and forth, because they did have several shootings as a result of that.
So there's been a lot of talk recently. Obviously, Keefe D has been arrested in connection to the murder of Tupac. Orlando Anderson, who you
I love how you say Tupac.
Tupac. People keep getting on me. People say Tupac, but it doesn't sound. It doesn't.
I got you. That's your accent.
But from what I understand, because you believe Orlando Anderson was responsible.
He was. Yeah.
He passed away, obviously.
He didn't pass. He passed away after he was shot several times in the shooting right after that.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Was what can you tell me about the circumstances of his death? And was that connected? Was that just regular street activity?
That was something altogether different.
Really?
or I should say we, because like I said, Las Vegas wasn't cooperating with us that much. They didn't want to because they felt as though we had crooked cops or Reggie Wrights and all that. So they weren't taking our information. And then again, there were detectives down here came the next day and night to try to get the information we had, but they were reluctant into really dealing with us directly. But I guess at some point, Vegas PD says, hey, we don't want to pursue them. They out of Vegas, it's family setting and stuff. Then none of our people get shot. And this is me. It's just me, my, how would you say it? Not assumption, but my thinking at the time. They pulled the detectives away, told them to come back. I think the officials in the city didn't want to make an arrest or anything. Because if they made an arrest on this, then all of a sudden, with Tupac's notoriety, it would be big news every time they have a court hearing or stuff. Negative publicity coming to Vegas. So they pulled the detectives out. That was there. We still investigating all this shooting and stuff, and we had to deal with it. But we had gathered a lot of information regarding who was responsible, the vehicle used, and all that. But then they got to let it go.
So you guys couldn't arrest Orlando Anderson because it wasn't your case.
It wasn't our case. Only thing we could do is help and pass on information to support Las Vegas in their investigation. They were somewhat listening, but not totally, because Brennan and Ladd subsequently met with somebody and tried to give them some information as time was going on. But Tupac, you were asking me directly about Orlando Anderson. Well, Orlando was always a person of interest, a suspect in Las Vegas thing, but they really wasn't, in my opinion, they weren't really trying to pursue it because they really didn't want to make an arrest. But then, months later or something like that, unrelated to all that, Orlando is going to a famous hamburger shop that's over there near Compton High School, right across from a car wash called Mom's Burger. Orlando goes over there and Mom's to get a hamburger or something. He looks across the street at the car wash, and it was 3 corner pocket Crips. Now these are good, but this was about dope. 2 of the brothers, they were brothers, over there had allegedly owed some money to pdiddy for the dope. So Orlando wanted to deal with him, but he was by himself. He took off from Mossburger and went not too far and picked up a little dude that I can know as a baby named Lil Al, who was definitely Southside. Him and Orlando was like this. They were raised together. So Al, Michael DeRoe, that's his name. But Al, he went and picked up Al and got Al to ride back up there with him. So when they got back up there, naturally the dudes are still at the car wash when they get in their car wash. And then that's when your boy, Orlando, gets out to go confront him. He's on. And he about to get in a confrontation with him, but they're on. And then at the car wash, a shooting occurred. Orlando ended up getting shot, plus he shot 2 of the 3 guys that were shooting at him, killed 2 of them. Orlando did. But they get back in the car because Orlando gets hit. And at some point they say Michael grabbed the gun and shot at the group too. I don't know, but they take off. Michael driving. Orlando in the passenger seat wounded. I mean, probably dead because he shot in the head and stuff. But anyway, that car wash is about 2 blocks from the police station. This is happening in the afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock. I'm on the real lot and talking with Ladd and Brennan and some people. We hear the gunshots because it's that close. And so naturally they start putting out on the radio, the dispatch, we on the lot, gunshot victims at the car wash over there on the line. So I jumped in my car first, and then Ladd got in their car, but I take off first. Now I have one of these undercover cars, like wasn't undercover because everybody Compton knew it, but it had all the bells and whistles on it. I take off with the bells and whistles to go toward Willowbrook to go to the car wash. But when I get almost to the corner of Alondra where you turn that Coco, I see this dude in the street, like trying to flag me down, As I get close to him, I recognize it's Michael DeRoe, and I knowing what kind of Michael was going to get involved. I knew he had to be involved in that shooting. So as I get out the car right quick, he's on red. Because like I said, I know, red. They shot Lando. I'm thinking, oh, they involved in something. So I hook Michael butt up right quick, make sure he ain't on, right? So I hook him up, and as I hook him up, I walk him to the side of the passenger side of that car. And there's Orlando in the car. And to me, like that, but we call paramedics. They're rolling and stuff. So I had a couple of cops that rolled up there with me, Ray Richardson and a couple of my gang cops and some patrol that rolled up to my scene. I think even the chief rolled up there. And then we all were there, but I told them to take Michael's butt to the station. And me and the gang, we went to the crime scene because now police, regular patrol unit, everybody there, and it's a mess. Not about mess, I mean, it's a big crime scene. And so that's when we get to looking into it and all and realize that was the 2 involved and what happened. So that incident. But as far as anybody going to jail behind that, I think Michael DeRoe was the only one. Yeah, that got, because he got convicted because I think it came out somewhere in there, even though he flagged me down and he told me the story about getting picked up and Orlando coming to get him, but Orlando got out. Naturally, he was telling me to talk to him, but they start shooting at them. So that's kind of how that went down. But Michael ended up getting convicted. As a matter of fact, is in jail now. And naturally, Orlando is got shot. That's when he got killed. Well, after the word gets out through law enforcement and the public and all that Orlando was dead, guess who got interested in the case again?
Oh, Las Vegas?
Yes, sir.
Really?
And then they send people back now to get some of the evidence that during the raids, because we came up with information more about the shooting in Vegas and possible weapons and all that, they sent detectives down to collect that evidence now. But why? Because they can clear that as deceased, suspect deceased. There was no trial now. I'll just show you how the system works out here.
No, that's really fascinating. Wow. I think that's all we have time for now, but I'm very grateful for you to kind of explain everything to me. And
I just hope I covered it.
no, absolutely. We covered so much interesting stuff. You know, you gave me so much great context about the early days of the Bloods and Crips and the interaction with law enforcement, you know, especially everything with the Tupac case and how all that played out. You know, the insights are just really valuable, and I'm really grateful. So thank you so much. Thank you for your service, and really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Of goods and walk out with no prosecution, really no consequences. I don't know how we ever got to that point, but I know it's certainly not law enforcement's intent to have it that way. It's all these progressive distasteful. I think we're seeing that. What do you think of Obama? You know, he said there's a long-time relationship between Diddy and Obama, and he was involved in some of these freak-offs. And well, he didn't say that. Don't let me misquote him, but he did say there's a relationship between Diddy and Obama.
Right. Well, we can, again, this goes back to, you know, do we declare people guilty just by association with no peer evidence? You know, they can be good friends, but it doesn't mean that one's guilty of the other one's misdeeds.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to be just really careful, even though I have personal feelings about President Obama. I'm very cautious not to even suggest that he was involved in anything with Diddy insofar as what Diddy's currently being investigated for. So I would just refrain from suggesting anything. I don't know. I think that if there's going to be this revelation of people who were directly involved with Diddy, I think Diddy's actually at the top. I don't think that there's upward mobility in the culpability of the people around him. It might go a little bit sideways, but most of it's going to go beneath him. He's going to have been the guy on top with the power, the influence to be able to take advantage of people. I don't think it's going to go upwards. I think that, you know, because he's a celebrity, you're going to rub shoulders with other celebrities.
Let me ask you, obviously, if something is sensitive, of course you won't answer, but has law enforcement asked you to come into this investigation at all with Diddy because of all your past knowledge?
Not so much with Diddy. Again, my personal involvement as investigator into Diddy, which had to do with the murder of Tupac Shakur and to some degree, the murder of Biggie Smalls. Insofar as his involvement in any kind of sexual misconduct, we never looked at him for that. It was never something that we were spending a large amount of time investigating. That's the only thing I'm doing is helping the current investigator with the pdiddy case, and also helping the family of Tupac Shakur with their potential civil case if they decide to go after Puffy Combs about his solicitation of Tupac Shakur, the solicitation of the murder of Tupac Shakur. I'm helping them to the extent that I can, and then I'm helping with the trial that KVD's facing next March. But it's limited to that. I don't really have much to say insofar as Diddy's current dilemma.
Didn't you investigate some goings on with Diddy in Miami also?
No, not so much. No, not really. I didn't have anything to do with any of his Miami investigations. Everything that I had, again, was kind of focused just on these two murders that we were trying to solve. I didn't have much to do with any of his other activities.
No. Let me ask you, how do you think this is all going to turn out, just from an outside perspective looking in with Diddy?
He's going to come to the realization that he needs to put all of his cards on the table and see what kind of hand he can play. You know, he's going to, obviously going to have to fall on the sword about anything that he did that was criminal, and where they have plenty of evidence to convict him should he go to trial. And he'll probably try to work out some type of. But again, there potentially is a lot more smoke than there is fire here. We'll find out in time. But I think that Diddy's legal advice from his lawyers is going to be, hey, anything you can do to assist the government to bring their entire investigation to a conclusion, you ought to do. And I think he will do that. It's really only his only option.
You know, it's interesting what you said. If he's at the top and everything is beneath him, well, it's at least from my experience with the feds, you know, then he's the guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's the guy that they really want. I mean, if he's able to give up anybody lesser than that, if they really want to get to the bottom of the investigation and anybody that really was culpable here, if they want to put that all together, then I guess they will deal with him. If not, you know, my past experience, he wouldn't be able to deal his way out of this.
You're right. And other than to the extent that he would be seen as cooperating, that he would be giving his full cooperation, it may not be implicating other people where they'd be using his information as evidence against others, but just mere cooperation, just being willing to sit down with the investigators and say, listen, ask me anything, I'll tell you honestly what I know to assist you. That does have, you know, that does have some value, some self-serving value. And that would be taken in consideration from the prosecutors and potentially a judge, just by the mere fact that you're cooperating and not making things more difficult for the government than they need to be. So there is some value there.
Yeah, let me ask you this. You know, it seems that the catalyst to bring this all about was that video that they saw of him, you know, beating his girlfriend up in the hotel room. And that seemed to spark this whole investigation after 20 years of allegedly this going on. Do you think that was it? I mean, was this known, or did they have, you know, some idea that this kind of activity was going on and just let it go, or didn't bother to look into it until that video came out?
Yeah, I think that the video most definitely was the catalyst to open the door towards looking much more closely at him. And everybody saw within that video what Sean Combs was capable of. And so I think now everybody's reconsidering, like, well, this guy just seemed to be a really, you know, hard-working producer. He's out there, he's making a lot of money, he's doing all these things, he's great for hip-hop, he's great for this, you know. And then now this happens, and people are like reconsidering, like, well, hold on, what are we dealing with here? And even for me, I'm like, well, I already knew that he was a very uncooperative guy. He did nothing to solve Biggie's murder and do anything to help us in our investigation. But he's not necessarily obligated to do that. Now we see him beating the hell out of this girl, and it just gives you a different sense of what he's made of, what kind of human being we're dealing with here. And I love the fact that Suge kind of everything that Suge says bad about a Biggie, Suge does. You know, Suge beats women, right? He's been arrested for it, beat a girl in Las Vegas in broad daylight. And so, you know, Suge, I love how hypocritical he is. Everything that he comes on and pretends to be somewhat of a saint, or that all these other people do all these horrible, you know, things. You know, there's nobody out there that's worse than Suge. He's a master manipulator. He's got bodies under his belt. He most definitely is directly responsible for the murder of Christopher Wallace, Biggie Smalls. And you had mentioned, and, you know, a little bit of empathetically, that hey, Suge Knight should get a second chance. Maybe Suge Knight should be given. No, I would disagree with you, Mike, and here's why. We don't get forgiven unless we first seek forgiveness, right? And Suge Knight's never done that. He's never gotten on his knees and asked Philetta Wallace for forgiveness for the murder of her son, which he caused. And so until the day comes, and to her, you know, to her credit, she has told me directly in person, I would extend my hand of forgiveness to the person that was responsible for the murder of my son. All they need to do is come to me and ask for it. Well, Suge Knight has never taken the responsibility for the things he's done. And so I can't, well, it's not my place to forgive him, obviously. And so until he seeks, you know, until he has a repentant heart and is willing to go to those that he's trespassed against and plead for forgiveness, I think he's right where he should be.
Well, this is great. You know, I appreciate your insight on this. I mean, I don't know Suge. I've had, you know, one conversation with him. I'm always kind of, you know, want to give people a second chance, but obviously, you know, you're a lot more familiar with him than I am. So I understand where you're coming from. I want to switch gears 1 minute. Do you have anything to do or any knowledge at all in the Menendez brothers case?
No, not at all. I've watched the documentary recently. I don't know any of the investigators that worked on it. So no, I know about as much about it as you might. It's a fascinating case. Did they just get reprieve? Were they given?
No, well, what happened, Gaston, he reviewed the case and made a recommendation to the judge that they should be resentenced to life with parole. And if the judge resentences them because they were minors or they were under 26 when they got convicted and sentenced, then they could be up for parole. The parole board can review it and decide whether to give them parole or not. They've already done that amount of time if they do get resentenced, so they could be eligible immediately. But now Gascon is out. The new DA is in. I'm assuming he's going to want to review that recommendation and maybe rescind it or say, no, I think they should do all that time. There's a lot of controversy. The reason I have interest, I did 11 months in LA County Jail with Juan Menendez.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I was there. We were both in lockdown. We were on one shoe. And he, told me of the abuse of his father. So people asked me about it. I said, listen, the only thing I know is what he told me during that time we were in there. And to me, honestly, Greg, he was believable. I believed what he told me. I think there was some mitigating factors there. Obviously, the murder was pretty heinous the way it came about, but it's not for me to decide. I would hope they did get a second chance because they've been model inmates, from what I understand. They were very young when this happened. But some people disagree with that. We'll see what the court says when it comes up for the hearing. I think it's in December.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. If what they say is true about the abuse and all of that, then yeah, you're right. It's mitigating and ought to be reconsidered maybe through that lens.
Yeah, I think, life with parole, and then, they had to convince the parole board and everybody else that they've reformed while they were in there. And like I said, they've been model prisoners. Both of them were married while they're in there. And one of them has a daughter, the younger one. So, I'm pulling for them, but we'll see what happens. Just that, but you might be have some insight into that in case it all is interesting.
Yeah, no, I haven't. Before we leave, I want to tell you, though, I really, really appreciate one of the things that comes to mind. I built some great relationships that went beyond the professional.
And it was it's really nice to know that some people looked at you, even during the time they were investigating you. Hey, this may not be a bad guy. He's doing bad things, and we're going to do our job. He's breaking the law. We're going to go after him, but it's not a personal thing. And I was really pleasantly surprised with some of the people that were on the investigative team with me that, had really nice things to say about me afterwards, and me about them.
I'll tell you, one of the things that comes to mind, I built some great relationships that went beyond the professional relationship of investigator and the defendant. And I can think of a half a dozen people right now who I became friends with, and we stayed in touch through prison, through their years in prison, writing letters back and forth. And when they got out, kind of reunited, had lunch, and built some really good relationships with some people. And it didn't always have to be this position of I don't know how to say it other than, it wasn't my job to judge. That's the court's job. I just bring evidence forward and let them do what they have to do with it. But I've always been understanding that life takes people down different paths. And sometimes we all make bad decisions and there's consequences to pay. And I never wanted to be the type of person that alienated myself as some type of self-righteous individual just because I happen to be on the quote unquote right side of the law. And I built great relationships. And I'm not surprised to hear that some of the people that you interacted with on the feds spoke highly of you. And you probably have some good things to say about them, even though your objectives were initially different.
They were different. We always took the position, hey, we're on one side of the law and you're on the other side, and you have to do your job. And if you do your job better than we do ours, and we get arrested and go to jail, then no hard feelings. All we ever said was, don't frame us. Don't harass our families and don't frame us. And we understand. And we really did. Most of us had that mentality. I can tell you that. We really did. So, very surprising to me. After 30 years, I sat down with Rudy Giuliani on a radio show, and Rudy had indicted me. And in the courtroom, the day of my arraignment, it was a $1 million bail. He came up to me and my lawyer, and he said, Francis, if I convict you on this case, I'm giving you double what your father got. And my father was doing 50 years. And I said, Rudy, bring it on. I said, I beat you guys 4 times already. Let's go for round 5, right? So, that was the feeling between the two of us. Fortunately, I got acquitted in that case, or I probably wouldn't be speaking to you now. But when we met 30 years later, he said, Michael, I've been watching you for the last 30 years, and I'm really rooting for you. I think, your transformation is genuine. I believe you really are a Christian, and I'm really happy for you. And it kind of surprised me when he said that. But it really made me realize something. We really are, we may be taking different paths in life, but we're really all one people. And, it's best to try to get along. And if you're on an opposing side, that's just the way it is. But there doesn't have to be hatred and animosity between you,
Absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't need to be personal.
Yeah.
Regarding working with the FBI, that was a double-edged sword. I love the resources that they bring to bear. Oftentimes the only way we're successful in some of these investigations is because of the resources that the feds would give us. And I worked with some great agents too. More often than not, the best FBI agents were guys that were previously municipal police or local police, and then they went on to become federal agents because they just seemed to understand the streets and some of the nuances of criminal investigations more than, say, some guy who was an accountant or a banker who became an FBI agent and really didn't have an appreciation for, you know, what it was like to investigate street activities. So but they were great as far as the resources. Often the agents were cool to work with. Sometimes they weren't. A lot of them had a little bit of a self-righteous type of attitude. But all in all, I liked working with the feds. I spent most of my career in task forces working with them, and had built some great relationships with a lot of different agents.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I spoke to some detectives that said this exactly the same thing. Sometimes, you know, you meet an agent that's a little bit elitist because they're a Fed, and but most of the time you work pretty well together. Yeah, which is okay. Let me ask you, what's your hopes for the city of LA now, and really for all of California? You know, as far as law enforcement and the way things are going now, what's your perspective? What do you hope to see, at least in these next 4 years? We got a different sheriff in town in the White House.
Well, I hope that if we go back to allowing the cops to go out and do their jobs without fear of, you know, reprisal every time they turn around. Listen, you work in an environment that is hostile and it's violent. And so there's going to be, it's inevitable that there's going to be altercations. And, you know, you can't talk everybody down. And more often than not, these days, the cops are criticized for everything that happens that, you know, that doesn't look good on video. Because nobody really understands the context prior or what the whole picture suggests. So I just hope that we get back to a place where we support law enforcement. Obviously, we need to hold them accountable when they fuck up. But understand we don't need to always judge the whole on the misdeeds of a few.
Yeah, Greg, let me ask you, did you see within the department at that time, was there much racial bias? Because I think it's so played up, it's so overplayed, you know, just because a person of color, you know, gets arrested or whatever happens. You know what I told people that say something to me, you know, Michael, what do you think the way police treated this guy? I said, let me tell you something. I said, whenever I was arrested, and I was arrested 18 times in my life, when the police would come up to me and they say, you're under arrest, I put my hands out, they put the handcuffs on, I get in the car, and we go through the system. I said, we don't try to run, we don't try to fight back, we don't try to do anything. You're asking for trouble when you do something like that. If you're just under arrest and you have to go and deal with it, you know, the way the system allows you to deal with it, that's it. And I think a lot of times these people bring on their own problem by the way they either resist or whatever, but it's looked at is that there's racial bias, you're coming after that. I'm sure there's some of that exists, but I think they're isolated incidents. That's how I view it.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. They're very, very isolated incidents and very, very few and far between. Both internally, yeah, it didn't matter to me if I was working with a female, Hispanic, a black guy, a gay man. It didn't matter who my partner was. Let's just go out and have some fun and watch each other's back. And that was the general, you know, environment that we worked in interpersonally. We didn't have that. And then out on the streets, we didn't care if you're breaking the law. We didn't see anything other than the behavior. Didn't matter if you're black, Hispanic, or anything else. And being a white guy, I didn't care. Didn't matter. And, you know, I worked in a predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhood almost all of my career. And so it's unavoidable that 99% of the people that I encounter are going to be of a minority nature. You know, and so it was just the nature of working in a place where there's different demographics. And I would say probably, and I maybe knew 2 true racist cops among the thousands that I worked with. And they weren't both white.
Wow. Well, that's you know, that's eye-opening. But, you know, my opinion of this is that this is politically driven. I think the politicians, instead of trying to calm this down, they fuel the fire even more of racism when an incident like that occurs. Instead of coming out and speaking, hey, this is an isolated incident, this is not how it is, they immediately attack the police, and it's a racist police department, and we have to have reform, we got to do all this, defund the police. I really think it's politically motivated. They're the ones that fuel the fire for this. If they would take a different position and calm people down, I don't think we would have had the issues that we've had. And we had obviously some bad ones, you know, going back.
I think that's been the Soros media's agenda, is to sow discord and to sow chaos, because it's easier to control a population that's under duress as opposed to one that's unified. And so as long as you create the division and the chaos and the confusion and the mistrust, it's easier to control that populace. And I think that's always been the deepest agenda.
No, you're absolutely right. We just recently, I know Trump came out with, he put his, I think the former head of ICE is going to be in charge of the deportations. And you already had someone in mainstream media saying it doesn't matter, even if you have a green card and they're coming after everybody. If you're brown, you're gone. And already starting to fuel that fire, getting people nervous, getting people scared. And this is what happens. All of this is from the media and it's politically motivated. And I just hope we can rid ourselves of all of these type of people that just want to see problems. They just want to see things explode.
It's so interesting, that the levels to it. Obviously, we're told that, our true struggle is that spiritual struggle, the principalities and dominions and what's behind the physical realm. When you go back and where is this all going? That's why I think that the power of prayer and the power of a unified body of believers can have a huge impact. The ones that they can't control. I would have thought that the left, the Democrats, probably thought that they had this whole thing wrapped up. And then out of nowhere, they're shocked. And I think it's because things were taking place behind the spiritual doors that they couldn't control. And now everyone's like, what's going on? And I really truly believe it goes back to, God is the ruler maker. God anoints the kings and he displaces the kings and the rulers. And he's always playing the long game. And so if we accept that Trump was God's chosen, and we have to also accept that Biden was God's chosen, but it's for a bigger and longer game than any of us can ever imagine or appreciate.
And that was well said, Greg. I really, my wife said something similar to that. Maybe the Biden administration had to really show us how far out of whack this was going to make people realize that we need a total reset. And I think she was right. I think your perspective on that is right also. I can tell you're a gentleman and just really a decent guy, and I appreciate that. And thank you for sitting down. I really mean that.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Prayers out for you and your family and for everything that you're doing. You've got a fan here in your corner.
Well, there you have it, people. And I got to tell you, it was a bonus for me, really, to hear Greg speak about his faith, about our faith, and give us somewhat of an honest assessment where things are right now. And listen, maybe it's something that I don't do enough on YouTube, but anytime I have a guest on that's willing to share his faith, like Greg just did, I'm very willing to accommodate because, listen, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for God having a different plan and purpose in my life. Jesus Christ is not only my Savior, he's my hero. I love putting it out there every opportunity that I get. And Greg gave us that opportunity, and I appreciate that very much. Fascinating guy. You know what? You can tell when you sit down with somebody, he's just a real class act, a man with integrity. I love the way he presented himself. He didn't go overboard. I love what he said. For him, it's a job. He has to investigate, criminal activity. Wherever it leads him, it leads him. I love what he had to say about, racism in the police department. I think it's overblown in many cases. Most of this is just isolated incidents. And I think Greg, a man of integrity, just said that and proved that. And, it starts at the top. It's the media that fuels these fires. It's politics that fuels these fires because they look for people to support them in that regard. Instead of trying to unite and calm things down, what do? They try to incite things. They should get into the communities and let them understand these are isolated incidents. And yes, there are areas where we need reform in the police department and in every other, agency in life. That's just the way it is. But we have to stop this thing that there's rampant racism in this country. I don't believe that to be true. And I don't.
Man, it is a lot of racism, bro. You can't see that. I don't know. A lot of stuff be.
I think it's inside.
Let me chime in, man. A lot of stuff be racially motivated. People be having their racial preferences. They, you know what I'm saying? They support their own people, support more people of their kind, and that's true. But we don't have to act like it's not a lot of racism and racism things said today in the media, especially with Donald Trump. They were just talking about Puerto Ricans are dumping, Americans are dumping. And
next thing I know, Wolf, rest in peace. He let off a shot and let off a couple of shots, and Suge Man got killed right there.
Wow. There's lots of different stories behind what happened. I remember at one point, Suge's homie gets killed in Atlanta.
Jake.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Friend of yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
Big Jake. Yeah.
Did they ever find out who killed him?
Well, the guy that's supposed to kill him is supposed to be in jail. Dead now.
Wolf?
Yeah.
Who was Puffy's right-hand man, his muscle.
Yeah.
Well, Wolf had passed, Puff's former bodyguard. I know you guys were close. How did that affect you?
Well, listen, that wasn't his former bodyguard. That was his friend. That was his childhood friend. You know what I'm saying? He definitely, if you want to hire one of my friends, you put him on, okay, you do security, but that was his friend. You know what I'm saying? That was his childhood friend. You know, that was his brother. That was my big brother. So they were both my big brothers.
Are we gonna see Wolf in the?
At 7:03 p.m. Las Vegas time, Tupac Shakur passed away, y'all.
Pro-played rapper and actor Tupac Shakur is dead at the age of 25.
Rap star Tupac Shakur died last night after a brief life in a rough business.
Shakur was shot 4 times after leaving the Mike Tyson boxing match in Las Vegas in a car driven by Marion Suge Knight, head of his label, Death Row Records.
The murder of rapper Tupac Shakur remains one of the most sensational murder cases of all time. At the height of his career, the then 25-year-old musician and actor was shot dead in the middle of the street in the heart of Las Vegas. The star's violent death caused shockwaves far beyond the rap scene. To this day, the case remains unsolved. Although there are ongoing developments, investigators are still baffled, even though someone was arrested in connection with Tupac's murder in the fall of 2023. And perhaps they will remain so forever. Because even if there are people who must know exactly what happened in the attack on Tupac on September 6, 1996, these people remain silent. One thing is clear. With Tupac's success came enemies. In this case, it's about the dark side of the US rap scene, about gang disputes between the East and West Coasts, and about conflicts with other musicians that may have ended fatally.
The East Coast don't love Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. The East Coast ain't got no love for Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Death Row. Y'all don't love us. Anyone out there?
Yeah, I want the long.
Liberty Mutual customized my car insurance, so I saved hundreds. But the money I saved, how'd I get a wax figure to myself?
Producer dancing in videos. Diddy Bop. Don't come on there for
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Whew, word on the street is this book is wild. It's off the chain. So before I get back, I want you to have your seatbelt buckled and get ready to take this journey with me. I'll be back. So I'm back. For those of you who are unable to purchase the book for whatever reason, I'm going to read the entire book. And it's not that many pages. So if this book is real, I mean, if the contents in this book is true, you know, I hope this the money they make from this book, it goes to a good cause. Okay, let's get on with it. Wait a minute. It has some disclaimers. It says one of Kim's Porter final wishes was for this memoir diary to be made public. Out of protection for certain parties and their potential criminal activity, some celebrities, performers, and events have been represented with X's due to their highly explosive nature. At some point in the future, this information will be revealed to the public. Regarding Kim's sudden death and the mysterious illnesses of Albie Shore and Jamie Foxx, evidence does exist that points to foul play and or poisoning. God bless Kim Porter and all of Sean Combs' victims, both male and female. Okay, that is page 1, disclaimer. So let's get into chapter 1, introduction. Soon after high school, I started landing modeling jobs. I couldn't believe it. It was all happening so fast. I met my husband, father of my oldest child, and one of my oldest friends in life, Albie Shore. It was a whirlwind romance. I was only 19 when we married, and no, it didn't work out. Al is still one of my best friends to this day. Our son Quincy is such a talented and wonderful young man. At that time, I had no idea my relationship with Al was going to introduce me to the man that I would spend the better part of my adult life with, a man whom I would love and cherish, but eventually fear and hate. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I will say, although I knew what was going on, I turned a blind eye many times. Here I have to tell this truth. Unfortunately, because deep down I knew everything that was happening, but I lied to myself a lot. He was so charming, a wolf in sheep's clothing, a devil, and I fell for it. This story must be told despite the fact it will hurt my children. I cannot hide it any longer. Sean Combs must be stopped. Chapter 2. Humble beginnings. I was born to loving parents, Jake Porter and Sarah L. Porter, in the Peach State of Georgia. All through Columbus High School, when I graduated in 1988, I knew I was going to be famous. In the 10th grade, one of my best friends, Tina, said to me, "You won't make it here in Georgia." I knew if I really wanted to be famous, I would have to leave my hometown and my home, Georgia. That conversation was so important. So I look back now, it changed my life. I met Al while I was working in the industry. He was so dope and charming, and I had such a crush on him. We were married before I knew it, and Quincy was on the way, but I was young, and it felt like it wasn't going to last. It was a little heated between us after we separated, but we got past that quickly. He is just a super dope guy and an amazing father. Though we separated, we were forever bonded through Quincy. Thank you, Al. I will always love you. When I met Sean, he was cool. I didn't think much of him at the time. He was just another guy at the label. Uptown was huge, and we were all living our best life. But Sean continued to lay on the charm, and before I knew it, we were dating. As a young single mom at one of the hottest companies in the world, life couldn't get any better than it did. My boyfriend was getting even bigger. Sean does seem like the type that can charm you, like, man, he is so cool, until he lets the demons out. Let's continue. He and Clive would hang out a lot, but I didn't think anything of it. I mean, that was his boss, and he was doing things bigger than most men dare to even dream. I did a video talking about Clive and the other men that mentored Diddy, and you guys should check it out. I think I'm gonna put it in the description of this video. Then it happened. I mean, okay, I was a little bit of a freak. I really enjoyed myself with my partner. And toys are one thing, but I never imagined having a man I was dating asking me to use a toy on him. The first time he said he just wanted to experience between God and I weren't always perfect. Then came that night. Award shows weren't anything new for us. At this point, we dolled up as men groomed. We didn't choose what we wore. A stylist prepared our color palettes. A makeup artist did our makeup, and a hairstylist did our hair. This was just the way of things. We share the best stylists in the business. Sometimes we would all go to the studio for an event to get our measurements taken, but this time Kadada seemed different. I felt like something was wrong, but when I told her, she wouldn't say anything. Then the day of the event was here. We would all see each other inside. Even though Sean was my man as far as props, I had nothing on Kadada. Being Quincy Jones' daughter had perks. Superstardom was among them. Pac wasn't there. When she saw us, she came over to our table. We sat around kicking it in a very dope vibe. Sean knew he was going to clean up this award show. He had all but taken over the East Coast musically. With all the hits, there really was no way he wouldn't. Bad Boy is Hall of Fame stuff now, and Sean P. Combs knew it. Sean smiled at Kadada as she sat at our table, but something about that smile didn't seem authentic. Soon I would know why. He's sick when he has a grudge against someone. As he sat, Sean said, Bad Boy is going to clean the F up. From his table with Faith, Chris replied, hell yeah. And that new ish we busting out, gonna have these niggas sick. Kadada signaled for the waiter to pour her a glass of ginger ale that sat over her table. As the waiter refreshed her drink, she said, Pac's music gonna get some love too. Sean grimaced. Oh, come on, Sean. I know y'all got your differences, but you have to admit the man makes great music.
Used to tell me that I couldn't, that's my motivation. Yeah, my motivation.
Use Hydro Boost Water Cream. 9 times the hydration for replenished, dewy, glowy skin. Grab at your nearest store today.
Standing there on business, I'm like, step off, underground the thoughts.
At 10, because at Rent-A-Center, $10 pays your first week on a new agreement. Choose an item, and your first week costs only $10, all without using credit. Just use promo code 1week for 10, only at Rent-A-Center.
A little cash goes a long way at Ollie's. Find brand name stuff. Up to 70% off the fancy store prices every day. Check out new deals at your local Ollie's today.
Ollie, good stuff, cheap.
John looked at me out of the corner of his eyes, then took another sip of his favorite cognac and replied, Bad Boy got the hottest music on the effing planet. But I ain't tripping. Everybody got to get their shine, right? Kadada signed. Sean, Tupac thinks you were involved with him getting shot. You two were so close. You need to make this right. Sean responded indignantly. What the F would that nigga think I had anything to do with it? Kadada retorted, Sean, can you blame him? Sean was obviously not happy with that question by his reply. Hell yeah, I blame him. We had a good thing going. All of us. That nigga turned on me. And he has the effing balls to blame me for his shooting. The indignity he managed to spew out while lying through his teeth was something I did not expect. I was thrown back for a moment before interjecting. Duh. Do we have to do this tonight? It's Sean's big night. Kimora heard the ruckus and made her way over to our table as well. She sat down and said, hey, everybody, with that big dimple smile. I smiled and replied, hey. Kadada also seemed happy to see her as she said, hey, what's up? Hey, what up, Kimmy? Kimora, never the type to hold her tongue, went straight to it. The whole place is buzzing with the fact you're sitting here accusing Sean of having Pac shot. Y'all kind of loud. She laughed. Kadada seemed embarrassed as she looked around to see everybody staring and whispering. But she wasn't about to back off. In fact, she doubled down. Anybody here not talking about it ain't real anyway. Honey, we don't have to do this here. Kadada made clear she was not to be silenced as she continued. Oh, let's not hurt the feelings of Sean Puffy Combs. He only had one of the most prolific rappers in the game shot. Sean clenched his hands into fists. If this was anyone else, this would have turned ugly. But this was Quincy Jones's daughter. Sean was the monster in the streets, well feared by men that knew, but he did not want any of the smoke Quincy Jones could bring. Kadada could continue with impunity. Sean could not touch her. Christopher and Mary, both wanting to defend the super producer that made them famous, both started to stand and make their way over to the table. but Sean signaled them off with a firm motion of his hand. They remained in their seats watching helplessly. Kadada seemed to be on full rampage. You're not safe in the streets, Sean. You think you're untouchable? Kimura seemed almost red in the face when she grabbed Kadada by the hand, saying, I gotta go to the restroom. Kadada, not willing to stop, snatched her hand away, yelling, let go of me. Kimura needed her to get a grip and said sternly, speaking to a child mid-tantrum, Dada. Kadada turned to her and yelled, what? Kimura nodded toward the crowded room, and Kadada looked around. Here she deflated slightly. Kimura, now in control, spoke firm but softly, let's go powder our nose. Kadada nodded with a grimace and gave a sharp look back at Sean as she walked away. As the tension slowly melted away, I asked Sean, you okay? Sean didn't reply at first. He looked around, saw that no one was really paying attention. Now that the ruckus had died down, and stood to get the picture of ginger ale from Kadada's table. He poured himself a drink from it, looked around again, saw no one was paying attention, and put the pitcher under the table. What was he doing? Then I heard the distinct sound of liquid being poured into the liquid. Oh my God, is he peeing in the pitcher? He smiled at me as he brought the pitcher back from under the table and finally replied to me, I'm good. He then stood and returned the pitcher to the table. I was in awe. I knew he had a bad temper, but this was disgusting. I'll never eat or drink something after we have an argument again. Kadada and Kimura made their way back to Kadada's table to sit. As Sean watched on quietly, Sean made small talk. Which songs do you think they'll give me awards for? As Kadada poured her drink, Sean's bodyguard made his way over to the table. I think he stopped her from drinking as everyone else just sat and watched. Gene risked incurring Sean's wrath, if I'm right. Relieved, I replied, babe, your catalog is crazy. It can be a lot of songs. Sean glared at Kadada's table the entire night. Going back to Cali, we had a wild night. It was after one of Sean's infamous parties. Everyone was there, and we not only had threesomes, but we also swapped partners. Our sex life was crazy, but I got to do things with Sean I would never have been able to do with a straight man. Oh, she said a straight man. Listen to you. Sean cared about me, but it was becoming more and more obvious that he preferred men. I was beginning to think I was there more to cover his wild desires than because he really wanted to be with me. He was like Caesar, every woman's man and every man's woman. But truthfully, at that stage, I was becoming okay with it. I woke up and left the bedroom where I was with Jada Pinkett, and Sean happened to be coming out of the bedroom. Wait a minute. I woke up and left the bedroom where I was with Jada Pinkett, and Sean happened to be coming out of the bedroom with his XX'd out and Will Smith. Yes, XXX attended the parties from time to time. I could see him and Will kind of snuggled up on the bed together. I was grateful I wasn't asked to join in that room. I didn't really like, and the name is X'd out. Sean smiled when he saw me. Good morning. Here at the orgies, he wasn't very affectionate. He didn't have to pretend, but he couldn't walk straight. I knew how his ass felt literally. We had sessions playing with each other's anal cavities. I wanted to be home before Quincy woke up, so I told him I'm going to get ready. He responded, let's have a cup of coffee first. This meant he wanted to talk. I didn't know what it was about, but in situations like this, I didn't really have a choice. He was becoming more violent when he didn't get what he wanted, and I didn't really want to fight. So I sat down, but before we started talking, XXX came out of the room. Sean was wearing boxers. X was in his birthday suit. X addressed me, morning. When he turned around in order to close the door, there was a dry cum stain on his back. X walked over, pulled a chair out to sit down next to us, and lit up a blunt. Who is this X dude? Sean stretched, smiled, and said, this East Coast, West Coast beef is more lucrative than I thought, but it's getting dangerous. X responded, surprised. Business first thing in the morning? Damn, cuz, you own it. But you know you don't got nothing to worry about. You got a pass, daddy. X smiled coyly. Sean apparently has something to talk about with X as well, because he said, I can't protect everybody, especially if someone is no longer going to be on my label. It was apparent X wasn't taken aback by this turn of events by his reply. Sean, are you saying what I think you're saying? Sean continued, it's taxing on my resources to protect people. Someone that isn't 100% of my team can't be 100% of my protection. What the hell is going on here? What does Sean want from me? This morning is turning out to be way more than I expected, and I have to go. Quincy will be looking for me. Meanwhile, X apparently wanted clarity. So to be clear, if something happened, X made quotation marks with his fingers to one of your artists that was leaving your label anyway, it would be considered He makes another set of quotation marks. Out of your control. Is that what you're saying? Wait a minute. Can they be talking about Biggie? Is Sean saying he won't protect Biggie? At this point, I was too young, too naive, too hungover to understand that this was not a lack of protection. This was a hit. Where did this come from this morning? But an older, wiser me understands now what I did not comprehend all these years ago. Sean was just getting to the real reason that he had X there. The world was about to lose Biggie. X laughed. You a cold mother effer. Sean said, why the F should I protect someone that isn't going to stick around? I made him. That nigga should be worshiping the ground I effing walk on. I was thinking Sean's ego is rearing its ugly head. And I wanted to get out of there, but instincts told me I need to tread carefully. So my next move had to be calculated. I don't really want any part of this, not even implicitly, but I was just dragged right into the middle of it. If what was happening here ever comes out, will I be held as an accomplice? But even as those thoughts crossed my mind, I couldn't just pretend this was okay. So I said, but Sean, he hasn't left yet. They're just rumors. Are you gonna let him die because of some rumors? Sean glared at me, the anger in his voice obviously stemming from hurt as he said, I know when I'm being betrayed. I'm not killing anyone, but I'm not protecting somebody that doesn't have my back 150%. F that.
Yes, this is a lady reading the Kim Porter book, the Kim Porter memoir, the diaries. They said it's not totally true, but I mean, from all the accusations they getting on Diddy, I mean, it sounds really.
Oh, my mind began to race. Is there a way to get through to him? Maybe I could use the finance route. Sean, he's bringing in so much money. You put so much money into cultivating him. Are you going to throw away all that money? That's when he revealed how thought out this meeting really was. If he leaves, he takes all the money I invested into creating him. Sean sighs. But if he can't protect himself and something terrible does happen, then the money I would make off his death will blow away all the money we made so far. I was perplexed. Sean, he continued, he's worth more to me dead than alive. Sean Combs is a calculated monster. X chimes in. I get that, fam. A lot of people out there want Biggie dead too. Without your protection, he doesn't stand a chance in Cali. Biggie is going to die. This is crazy. I dare not say anything else about it. I think I know who X is, but I'm not going to say anything until something else, come out to confirm it. But I have an idea. Sean smiles and stands to walk over to a safe behind a picture. There he pulls out a bag marked with X's name. He turns to X and says, that's why you're worth your weight in gold. You understand me? Here's a little something for you to take care of my people. X smiles. Sean, I love you, baby. You know I got your back. Your problems are my problems. I'll make sure to have my people take care of your people. I need to get out of here. This is crazy. I attempted to leave again. Sean, I want to go get Quincy before he wakes up. Sean looked at me responding, it's getting late. Give him a kiss for me. I'm going to get out of here. Thank God. X always with something to say. I'd love to meet the little tyke sometime. Not a chance in hell. Something about this guy creeps me out. I'm forced to smile. That would be great. I made my exit. Who the heck is X? She did not like him. She did not like him. Let's continue. Chapter 10, the lies you tell. At this point, the relationship between Sean and I had been off and on for quite a while, and we were off at this point. He had put his hands on me again, this time for something that didn't even happen. It was all in his head. When the phone rang, I picked it up anyway. Hi, Sean. We've been broken up for a while this time. Yeah, he continued. I don't want anyone to know about he paused to search for the right word, proclivities. I replied, so you don't want people to know about you being gay? Sean exploded. See, that's why I effing lose control on you. So I just plainly stated, goodbye, Sean. Wait, he screamed. What, Sean? I'm sorry, okay. You're always effing sorry. He took a deep breath. I have to do something to cover myself. I sighed. Do whatever you effing want, Sean. When you see this is in the news, it's not real. This made me calm down a moment. What could he be talking about? He continued. I'm only doing it for the press. Doing what, Sean? After a long pause, he continued. She knows what this is. She is just pretending to cover me. Sean, what the hell are you talking about? Another pause. Publicly, I'm going to be dating someone else. A video girl? I laughed. Why would you do that? I have to cover myself. I was getting mad. I was actually angrier at myself more than at him. Why was I getting jealous? I was sitting there actually comparing myself to video vixens in my mind. They are thick, but look at my body. Did he prefer some light-skinned, big butt girls from videos? I call myself, no, I know he likes men any damn way. As I regained control, I asked, why the hell are you telling me? He sighed. I wanted you to find out for me first. Like I give a ish. He came at me with his favorite line. You know I love you. It was getting old. I could only think to myself, here we go. Love is a big, strong word. I'm tired of him throwing it around and using it when it fits his needs. He's using it while he's sitting here telling me about dating someone else. I replied, you don't hit people you love, Sean. Love doesn't hurt. He sucked his teeth as he responded. Come on. Are you serious? That shit's for children. We aren't in effing high school. Sometimes things happen. That doesn't mean I don't love you. I wouldn't hit you if I didn't. Wait, that sounded wrong. You said exactly what you meant. He took a breath. There was an awkward silence. The fact I was still on the phone and waiting for him to speak meant he had the power. He was more cautious as he continued. He didn't want to lose that power. Kim, no one that I don't care about can bring that kind of emotion out of me. I wanted to say, is that how you talk to dudes after using butt plugs? But there is a line I dare not cross. Instead, I said, you say that while you're dating some other itch? That's just for public. I was done. It could be heard in my voice as I said, whatever, Sean, do what you need to do. Leave me alone. I'm never giving up on us, he cried. I responded to that emotional control attempt with a little resolve I could muster. I didn't even believe the words that came tumbling out of my mouth. Sean, there is no us anymore. Goodbye. Tell Quincy I miss him, he threw out. His emotional manipulation was really driving me crazy. This time I said with much more conviction, goodbye, Sean. I hung up. Manipulative bastard. For a while, I was actually happy to see Sean gone. I was getting older and the sex parties were out of control. It was getting time for me to slow down. Quincy was getting older. I knew that if I kept going, the rumors circulating were going to eventually find a way to get back to him. What will he think of me? Chris is about to take his trip to California. I didn't know exactly what was going to happen out there, but I felt like Deanna Wallace was about to be an orphan. I knew I didn't want any ties to that. As I was sitting there contemplating all of this in my robe, sipping my wine on this Friday evening, my doorbell rings. I was not expecting company. I opened the door and found Sean. My heart skipped a beat. I was shocked but recovered quickly. I forced a smile and told him with a slightly slurred speech, shit, I am way more intoxicated than I thought. Sean entered looking around suspiciously, then turned to me and smiled, saying, you haven't been returning my calls. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. I'm fine. He obviously was not here out of concern. He was checking to see who was here. Sean was controlling like that. Yes, even though we were not together and he was dating someone else, he started to make his way to the living room. I attempted to put a quick end to the visit, but it came out a little more directly than I intended. So, since you can see I'm fine, you can let me go to bed now. Part of me wanted him to stay. As he entered the living room, I was forced to follow. Sean was very direct with his next inquiry. Is someone else waiting for you? No, but Sean, we're not together. You're dating someone else and I can F whoever I choose. With this, Sean became irate. He fiercely slammed me to the ground. Then he pulled out a 22 and set it on the end table. He turned to me calmly. I was scared. My voice quivered as I pleaded to him. Sean, please stop. Quincy is here. How did we get here? How did we get to the point that he was in my living room threatening me with a gun? He knelt on one knee and got right in my face to say, you're mine. You don't have a choice in that now. I can't live without you. He stood up, composing himself. I was terrified as I whimpered, Sean, that's not love. Sean picked up his gun and cocked it. He looked at me almost thoughtfully and asked, have you ever heard, if I can't have you, no one can? Sean, please don't. Please. Quincy, we're here. Sean smiled and put the gun away, saying, oh, this is just for dramatic effect. I would never shoot you. If I was going to kill you, no one would trace it to me. You know how many people I've had to take care of over the years? It will be quiet. Something in your food or drink. Oh my God. Something in your food or drink. Something that would never get back to me. I wouldn't shoot you. Do you understand? I could only nod, tears flowing down my cheeks. He looked at me thoughtfully. As he reached down to help me up, I could do nothing but agree. He's a terrifying monster. Now he wanted to smooth it over and I had to go along with it. What else could I do? Listen, baby, I don't ever want to hurt you. You know I really love you, or I would have moved on. Thinking about living my life without you is just too hard. If someone ever tried to hurt you, I would kill them. My back hurt from where I hit it on the table when he shoved me. All I could do as he held me up was nod that I understood through my streaming tears, which he wiped. He looked toward Quincy's room. Let me say goodbye. No, Sean, please. He, thinking quickly, he has to get up in the morning. Sean looked at me with an unreadable look. He was studying me. Okay, I'm gonna go. Nervously, I walked him to the front door. This is over, thank God. He kissed me. I didn't want him touching me, but I couldn't refuse. Kiss Quincy for me. I tried to keep my composure as I replied, sure, Sean. He opened the door to leave. The bodyguard that was waiting outside escorted him to the car. This was far worse than I realized. Why would he need a bodyguard at my front door? How was he anticipating this go? After I shut the door, I had another drink. For tonight, the nightmare was over. I sipped on my wine and cried. The next few days, he sent dozens of flowers. He brought Quincy expensive toys. He didn't want me. He wanted me to keep a secret. I'm trapped. He has authorities under his thumb. I can't go to them. This is like a gangster movie. How high up does his power go? How far is his reach? The FBI, the CIA, who is not corrupted or who won't be silenced by their upper chain of command? Can anyone help me and my child? He found his way back to my bed. I had no choice. Chapter 12, A Mama's Love.
To elevate my holiday celebration, I turned to Ferrero Rocher to add a golden touch. New Airwick Advanced plug-in with 8.
Yeah, it's this lady reading Kim Porter book. Kim Porter diaries about P. Diddy, all the stuff that he's going through, Jay-Z, how he was threatening her, and how he was having gay relations with powerful people in the industries, and how his basically he had a lot of connections, a lot of money, a lot of connections. He was basically just, Oh, shout out to you, Scott Time, for subscribing, man. Appreciate that.
He was a contributor. He knew it was going to happen and didn't stop it. This was his friend. No, they were not nearly as close as Sean would have the public believe, but still. As far as Sean was concerned, we were great. To the public, we were just having the off and on relationship of a normal couple. And I probably just seemed like a money-hungry hoe. But the truth is, I just got used to not having a choice. Today, I recognized it for what it was. Stockholm Syndrome. I was at his beck and call and had become comfortable with it. Quincy had everything he could ever want, with the exception, of course, of a normal parental figure. That is why this chapter is so powerful for me. A mother's love is so real. One night, I was out with my boyfriend. Yes, we were on again. We were joined for dinner by none other than Miss Wallace. Sean looked over as security allowed Miss Wallace to approach the table and sit. Miss Wallace spoke with a smile. Hello, Sean. Hi, Kim. I smiled the best I could. With the situation, for all intents and purposes, she is sitting with her son's killer. I hope my voice didn't betray my feelings as I said, hi, Miss Wallace. Sean smiled also as he said, hello, Miss Wallace. What can I do for you? When I got your call, it sounded urgent. He was able to appear as if he was smiling warmly. This was the creepiest situation of my life. She looked at Sean with pleading eyes. I know this isn't your problem, but things have gotten kind of hard. I was hoping that you could send some of that money Chris made with you this way. Sean shook his head. That's not something I can just do. There are attorneys and accountants. Can I maybe help you out with a little something to get you past the hump? Sean reached into his pocket to dig for his wallet. I haven't seen how much Chris left. It's going on 2 years. Just how long is this going to take? Sean sighed as he replied, these things are difficult, Miss Wallace. I don't know. The attorneys don't make this easy. Miss Wallace pushed further. I don't understand what's so difficult. He worked for you. He made his money. Where is it? Sean shook his head as if saddened by what he was saying as he continued. It's not like I could just give you his money. You're entitled to certain amounts, and they're just trying to figure out what that amount is. I don't mean to sound cruel, but it wouldn't be fair to me to just give you tons of money. You got rich off my son, and now you're keeping all of his money? Sean kept his cool as he replied, I'm afraid business isn't that cut and dry, Miss Wallace. I pay for publishing, publicity. I mean, in all actuality, if I'm going to be straightforward, Miss Wallace, Chris probably owed me money. I won't know until it's all worked out. The anger in Miss Wallace's voice barely overshadowed the pain, or perhaps it magnified it as she uttered the only words she could muster. You bastard. Sean didn't flinch. He just said, look at the contract. I'm honestly trying to get him as much as possible out of it. But I have investors. I can't just take money that doesn't belong to him and start giving it away. Miss Wallace exploded in response. You know good and well Chris didn't owe you a damn thing. Sean stared her straight in the eye unwaveringly and said he would have started making a profit after a few years. His money until his album sales, paid for studio time, music, videos, publishing, and marketing would have come from doing shows. I'm sorry he isn't here to make that money. I miss him. Her response was deadpan. Did you kill my son? Momentarily, Sean was stunned into silence. She asked him again, her voice quivering. Did you? He started. Miss Wallace, she would not be redirected. Answer the question. I was not used to seeing Sean on the defensive. No, of course not. She looked at him with spite, the anger in her voice enough to send shivers up my spine as she replied with a menace only a mother can. I don't believe you, Sean. Sean looked at her with a sadness that I knew in my soul to be fake. Although looking at him without context, anyone would believe him as he replied, I'm sorry to hear that. Today, I know he was able to muster that false sincerity because he's a sociopath. Back then, I thought it was compassion. With no more words, Miss Wallace stood up and left. Sean watched her exit with disbelief, not knowing what to do. I placed my order. Dinner that night was long and silent. I feared for Miss Wallace's life. Sean is most dangerous when he feels threatened. It's like he has the animal mentality. Let's go on. No, she could not physically threaten him, but this threat was very real. If she goes public with her accusations, Sean's image will be damaged. I have felt for myself the extents he will go through in order to protect that image. Chapter 13, have some faith. The fact of the matter is Sean was a complete control freak. He was absolutely the worst. But of all the things he did for control, this might have been one of the most despicable ones. We were in the bad boy office one evening, sitting in the lounge area, enjoying a meal. Sean was smoking one of those big cigars when Faith entered and sat down with us. She seemed relaxed as she said, hey guys, as I smiled, I never had any bad vibe from the marvelous Faith Evans. We never talked about the wild time the three of us shared at one of Sean's parties. I gave her a hug. Hey girl, what's up? Sean smiled and asked, hey, what brings you out? She addressed Sean saying, look, when you asked me to hook up with Chris, I understood you needed to control him. I felt honored that you would choose me to monitor one of your most valuable assets. Chris is sweet, Sean laughed and said. Honestly, I knew you would be good, make the big man feel loved. I don't feel good about all this, Sean. Sean got that look in his eyes he gets before he blows his top. Faith saw it also. She treaded carefully. Sean, you know, I'm as loyal as they come. Sean leaned forward, unintentionally threatening, and said in a low tone, yeah. But Sean, Chris and I had a child together. Sean leaned back. He let out a deep breath. I'm going to take care of you. You're not like Chris. You're loyal. Faith had a tear in her eye as she responded. He didn't have to die. This is getting very touchy. Did she know? Did she suspect? Was this her trying to find out if Sean intentionally killed Biggie? I wanted to ask, but of course there was no way of doing that. This is so crazy. Sean sighed and replied, he didn't. Don't get me wrong. I miss him, but he was leaving me anyway. No one cares about my pain. Classic narcissistic Sean. It's all about him. I was sickened for a moment, but his next sentence made me feel for him anyway. I wanted to share all this with him. He was my man. Faith couldn't hide the anger that flared in her eyes, but she knew who she was talking to. She was careful as she spoke. Sean, you have friends you share things with. Sean sat forward again, and this time with malicious intention as he queried, what the F is that supposed to mean? Chris had no one, only you. Sean lost it. That fat F and that other piece of ish I had, you F. I interjected while in shock. You had her F Pac? Sean glared at me as he answered, yes, F and Pac. Those mother effers were going to try to start their own label and compete with me. Me, after all I did for that fat F? Nah, I wasn't using resources to protect that mother effer. No effing way. As Faith started to cry, Sean looked at her and softened slightly. He spoke a little calmer. Look, I didn't hate him. I was hurt, but I didn't hate him. I'll make sure you and CJ are taken care of. Without word, Faith got up to leave. As she turned, Sean spoke softly, Faith. She ignored him. He called her again, Faith. She exited quietly. Sean just looked at me and said, damn. I really didn't know what to say. Sean just told Faith that he wouldn't protect her husband because he was going to leave Bad Boy. From a business perspective, I didn't disagree with Sean there. If you're leaving and creating competition for him, why would he spend resources on you? So I hugged Sean, but I also knew he didn't have to send Chris to California. I wondered if he realized that he sentenced him to death. He hugged me back with tears in his eyes and asked, how the F am I the bad guy, huh? I effing do nothing but bust my ass to make everyone live comfortably, and I'm supposed to just let niggas walk all over me? As I held him in a comforting embrace, I replied, no, baby. He took me right there on the couch. Like I said, Stockholm Syndrome. Chapter 14, I was shocked. This particular evening, I was at Sean's house. Quincy was staying with a friend. It was a long time for Sean and I until the doorbell rang. Sean got up to answer it. I heard a woman yelling and quickly realized that it was Jennifer Lopez, or better known to the world as J-Lo. Sean, what the F? Sean responded calmly, relax, baby. Why the hell did you have to start shooting? Isn't that what we have bodyguards for? Normally when these kinds of situations arise, I remain quiet and just listen. I play my position, you could say, but I wasn't paying attention to the news for the last day or so. And even though it would be the only thing anyone would talk to me about for months, no one had spoken to me about it yet. So I entered the foyer asking, what's going on? Jennifer exploded at me. What's going on? What's going on? This nigga shot up the damn club. My jaw dropped looking back and forth between the two. Sean spoke soothingly. Jen, you gotta calm down. Jennifer was having none of it. She continued, calm down, calm down. You shot a bunch of innocent people, Sean. Sean placed his hand on her forearm. It's a bonding technique. He was shrewd in handling her. He does this to me too. Even if you know what's happening, it works. It's an intimate contact without being personal. He was aiming to disarm her. This did not seem to immediately sway Jennifer as she continued. Why in the hell do you think Biggie's replacement will take the fall for you? Biggie's replacement? Wait, could she be talking about? I had to know. Are you talking about Shine? Jennifer didn't even look at me as she responded, yes, effing Shine. Sean continued a calm and even voice. Relax, the situation is under control. Jennifer was not coming down. She went on, they contacted my attorney for my statement, and there are a lot of witnesses, Sean. There's no way you're going to get away with this. Sean's arrogance can be immeasurable at times. He laughed as he asked, you doubt me? I couldn't believe it. I had to know. Sean, what could you offer him that would make him do a bid for you? Like, what the F? Jennifer also remarked, and what if he falters halfway through his sentence and starts talking? Sean responded as calmly as ever. He won't do that. People in jail don't cross-connected people on the outside. Jennifer looked deflated. So you'll kill him too? How much does she know? Look, I'm not going to threaten anyone. Sean is smart and loyal. He knows how it works. And when he gets out, he'll be well taken care of. Jennifer spoke defiantly. Sean, they want to question me. I'm not perjuring myself. I am not going to jail over this. Sean seemed so in control. I admired him for it at this point, but my spirit was broken. I felt bad for Jennifer. She catches one bad break after another, and this was a really bad break. Sean spoke with confidence. Relax. Come in and have a drink. Have your lawyers call me. You'll never see the witness stand. I promise. Jennifer wasn't so sure. She asked him, how do you possibly know that? Sean smiled as he replied, between Shine's confession and the witnesses that gave their accounts, the cops won't need much help. The statement from your lawyer will be fine. Jennifer's next concern popped up. She explained, my attorney, Sean, he's good, but he won't do this. Beaming with confidence the way only a man with his network can, Sean responded, sure he will. Jennifer shook her head defiantly as she responded, Sean, you don't know him. Sean's unbreakable confidence was ruling the day. Jennifer was giving in as he told her with a smile, I've got this. Sean, are you sure? Sean gave a wink. My attorneys handle situations. Give him my number 2. Jennifer seemed weary as she asked, you're not going to threaten my attorney? Sean laughed as he replied, no, of course not. Money talks, baby. He turned to me and said, take her inside and pour her a drink. I have a question of my own. But you were going to make Shine the label's go-to man? What are you going to do now? Sean looked disappointed as he responded. He had the voice, but his flow, he signed. Well, artists with his talent are a dime a dozen. Looking at Jen, he continued, he's not a once-in-a-lifetime find like Jennifer Lopez. Now he's throwing on a charm. Despite the situation, she blushed slightly. Sean continued, let's grab that drink. Let me handle this attorney situation. Relax, don't worry. He left the foyer and went to have a seat in the living room. He tried to make a threesome happen that night. It didn't work out. Not that day. Chapter 15, Queen Bitch. Kimora Simmons and I went out to have drinks. She was looking at me seductively and I was turned on. We were going to go back to my place afterwards, but suddenly after a sip of my drink, I felt like I had to vomit. I excused myself and barely made it to the ladies' room. When I came back, Kimora asked, you feeling okay? I'm fine. I have been under the weather the last couple of days. I think I'll head home. She said, your breasts are looking kind of plump there, girl. Embarrassed, I whispered, not in public. She replied simply, are you pregnant? I was taken completely aback. Why the hell would you say that? She let it sit there for a minute. I bet in her head, she was like, wait for it. Then it hit me. She gave me a minute before continuing. So what you gonna do? I didn't understand. Gonna do? If it's not Sean's, F. If it is, with the shock wearing off, the scope of the situation began to take hold. I responded, I better get a test. She looked at me with pity. Damn, girl, good luck. After what he did to Chris, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. The desire that was in her eyes before I got sick was all but gone. As I began to stand, I realized what she said to me and I paused. She looked at me flatly and said, ain't nobody stupid, girl. I didn't know what to say. The question still lingered in my mind despite everything I knew. Did Puffy intentionally kill Chris? She brought me back to the moment by saying, go, not knowing what else to say, but knowing I had to deal with my situation right now. I replied, I'll hit you up. She sighed and simply repeated, good luck. So everybody knew that it had something to do with taking Notorious out. Okay.
I'm Questlove, and this is the Balvenie Whiskey. In a world that increasingly values efficiency over soul.
See the games, this world. Okay, let's go on. Chapter 16, Christian. The next day I was sitting on my couch deep in thought when my doorbell rang. I went to let Sean in. This is going to be scary. We made our way back to the living room and we sat down. Quincy was asleep. Sean seemed legitimately concerned. What's so urgent? I didn't know what else to do. I just blurted it out. I'm pregnant. The air in the room was so thick as J-Lo. He was quiet. What is he thinking? He asked the obvious question. Are you sure? I spoke rapidly. I was an appeal. I'll get rid of it. I'm sorry. I just wanted you to know. That's wonderful. This is great. I was so confused. Huh? You're not mad? He laughed. Mad? No. Why would I be mad at this wonderful news? I'm going to be a dad with a woman I love bearing my child. What could possibly be better? He jumped right on the phone and called one of his besties. I could hear Will Smith congratulating him. Sean said, yeah, definitely, hold on, Kim, baby. I was still in awe of the fact that he didn't get angry. And yes, I will admit, I was sure he was going to hit me. So it was with relief when I replied, yes. He told me excitedly, we got to have a party. His excitement was contagious. I was getting really excited too. Yes, a gender reveal. And he cut me out. Yes, of course, we're doing all of that, but everyone is going to want to sleep with you right before you give birth. My heart sank in my chest. Everybody is going to want to what? Sean went on with that same excitement. Well, not everybody, you know. Will, Jada, X. Sean, I'm having your baby. He verbally waved me off. It'll be fine. I couldn't help myself. I just started crying. Sean grew quiet on the phone, then spoke low. I'll call you back. He hung up and took me by my hand. Baby, I never asked anything from you. I tried to see him through the tears streaming down my face. I couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. I tried to speak. Sean, he cut me off. I provide everything anyone could ever want. Do you want for anything? Sobbing, I replied, no, but he continued. This is the kind of thing I have to do in order to continue giving you this comfortable lifestyle where you live on a lap of luxury and get to be on TV shows and in movies. I know you don't want this, but do you want all of this to go away? A whimper is all I could manage. No, he continued softly. Then we got to do this. I said, but Sean, I don't believe in all this spiritual crazy-ish. We got here because you're brilliant, not because of sex party. Oh. He replied, do you trust me? I did. My soul was so broken. I did. I responded, yes. He sighed as he said, then let's do what we need to do to keep what we have. As I nodded yes, he pulled me in to hug me. Thank you, baby. We are going to have a beautiful baby. He ordered me some food that night. I cried myself to sleep. I was going to be gangbang at 9 months pregnant. I want my child out of this life. My child is going to have a good biblical name, a heavy Christian name. They are not going to take his soul. Oh. Chapter 17, Broken Promises. I don't know how this managed to stay out of the media for so long, but Sean got to the point where he was incredibly abusive and only his inner circle knew about it. The artists were all too afraid of him to say anything. He had gained so much power, no one would say anything. Puff Daddy was a kingpin. This Monday morning, Quincy was in school and our son Christian was with the nanny, and I still had to make a living. I still loved the camera and had just been cast for a new movie. Sean was going over to celebrate with me, just the two of us. I was in the bathroom when he came in. We were supposed to go out for dinner, but he was in a foul mood. Sean yelled, what the F? I would have to walk on eggshells as I came out of the bathroom, but I found him holding flowers, so I smiled. You brought me flowers. Sean yelled, no. So who the F are they from? I was bewildered and told him, honestly, I don't know. Probably just a fan. He threw the attached card at me. I picked it up to read it. Sean, he slapped me so hard I hit the ground. Sean yelled, who the F were you with the other night? I looked down at the card that was lying on the ground next to me and it read, the other night was amazing. We must do it again. Ish, I tried to explain. Sean, he threw the flowers at me. That's not how this works. You at my child. You don't touch anyone unless I allow it. I yelled back, it was just coffee with the producer. It was nothing. He glared at me and asked, who the F is this producer? I was trying desperately to calm him down as I responded, from the movie, babe, calm down. He picked up my coffee mug and slammed it against the wall. Coffee flew everywhere as he yelled, who the F this nigga think he is? Sean, he's just some producer. We talked about the role and me maybe starring in another movie that he wants to produce. I swear, that's it, Sean. Sean exploded even more. He wants to put the move on my effing family at the top of his lungs. My effing family? He flipped the table over, breaking it. It was a heavy table. But Sean is stronger than he looks. I pleaded with him. Sean, please. He yelled at me. What? I tried my best to calm him down. He probably didn't know. It didn't come up. You're publicly dating someone else. So he screamed at me, and it somehow seemed even more intense. So you didn't tell him back off? Sean, I didn't. And then out of nowhere, he hit me with a chair. I don't remember anything after that until I woke up in the hospital room. My arm was in a cast hanging from a sling. My face hurt. My eyebrow was in intense pain, as was my lip. As I came to, the first face I saw was the man that put me here. Sean asked me with concern in his voice, "How you feeling?" I responded, "Stay away from me. I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. I save it for the lawyers. Stay away from me." We were in a private hospital room and no one would hear me. I could scream like my life depended on it, but it wouldn't matter. If I did ring for assistance, I wouldn't get any. He kept going. I was just so jealous. You know how I am. He took hold of my left arm, the one that was not slung in a cast. You have our beautiful son, our family. It's just, at that point, I had enough. The one you slutted out right before giving birth? Are you effing shitting me? Stay away from me. Don't come near me or my kids. He continued to plead, "I'm sorry, baby, I promise." And I swear I've heard this song one too many times. I spoke through gritted teeth. "If you come near me or my kids again, I'm calling the cops." A flash of anger returned. "You would use my kid to threaten me?" But then he caught himself. "I understand you're angry." I glared at him as I cut him off. "I'm serious, Sean." He spoke blandly with no energy. "And tell them what? That you had a car accident?"
Cherry rice and Sauce Gardner. Sauce and rice. Kind of funny that two guys whose food names ended up in the NFL.
Probably just a coincidence.
Oh, like we only made it to the pros because sauce and rice are a good way to sell.
Game food. Get deals on saucy wings, rice, and more. Only on Uber Eats.
Stop stressing over zits. Mighty Patch pimple patches reveal clear-looking skin overnight. Pimple, meet your Mighty Patch.
Airport dad reserved his Uber ride months in advance. Now they're just in time to be 5 hours early. To all the airport dads, now you can reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance.
Pity you. That you hit your head, he was going to make me look crazy. They were going to believe him. He was a kingpin. You're an effing bastard. Sean spent the next 6 months helping me heal and working his way back into my life and into my bed. I was so damn stupid, and of course, I wasn't cast for either movie. From what I understand, the producer died of pneumonia. Damn, did he kill the producer? Ooh. Sean kept his word for the most part until he didn't. I ended up pregnant again. He wanted energy from that too. That would be my last sex party. My body will never be ravaged by so many people again, especially while I'm pregnant. What if something happened to the twins? After that, I wanted out. But when I tried dating someone else, they would end up dead from pneumonia. What the? I knew Sean was behind it. This was not a coincidence. He gets jealous of a guy and they die of pneumonia. I could be next if, oh my, didn't she have some kind of pneumonia? Oh, let's continue. If I'm going to get out of this alive, I'm going to have to do something to make him stay away from me. I had a plan, but it was dangerous. Sean has a vault where he keeps videotapes of all his conquests. I started sleeping with him again. After he falls asleep, he was starting to drink heavily. I would get into the vault and get a couple of tapes, take them home, make copies, and swap them for the next set of tapes a few days later. It took weeks to get them all copied, and he never knew I had them. This was my way out. Some of the tapes had things I would have never expected. The gay parties are one thing, but the young boys, like Usher, Lil Bow Wow, Justin Bieber, I would have never known. My God, is he grooming Quincy? This has to end. Ooh. I invited him over one day to confront him and put an end to our on-again, off-again relationship. He entered my house unannounced for the last time. He would no longer have the key after today. I was in the kitchen. Kimora and I were sharing drinks. I was scared to face him alone. Sean entered smiling. "What's up, Kimmy?" "Hey, more." I told Sean to sit down. Because of my tone, he looked at me stung and asked, "What's going on?" "What is this?" I responded with delight. "Me taking my life back. We're done." He answered, "Hold on, wait a minute." I was so excited that I wasn't hearing any of it. I shouted at him, "No, no more. This is effing over." He looked confused as he asked, "Where's all this coming from?" With disgust, I said, "I got effing footage, son." He looked even more confused as he inquired, "What are you talking about?" Kimora said with revulsion, "Usher too?" Sean said, "Wait, what the F is going on?" Sean stood aggressively, and Kimora responded, Don't make me call the cops. Sean's anger was creeping in as he replied, this is how it is. I simply nodded. If anything happens to either one of us, it gets released. He seethed as he queried, after all I've done for you, I don't think I was ever so happy as when I said those words to him. Get out. Pissed, he started to leave, looking back with pure hatred. As he walked down the stairs, he turned around in a fury and lunged at me. He knocked me down near the top of the stairs. I was hurt. Kimura screamed, stop. As he began to crouch over me, I kicked at him, hitting him in the kneecap, then his face. He went tumbling down the stairs. He was too hurt to get up. I called the cops. Kimura left before they arrived. When he left, it was in an ambulance. I felt empowered. I felt safe. The Sean Combs days had finally come to an end. Chapter 19, finale. Things were okay for a while. I started dating again. It was almost normal until I got serious with someone. Then my boyfriend died of pneumonia. I knew it was Sean again. That's when I decided to write this book. A few days ago, my home was burglarized. Only laptops were stolen. I know it was that bastard or his goons. Of course, I had a copy in the cloud that I was able to easily download here onto this new computer. As I continue to write now, I'll send this into the cloud as well. I will send out copies via email, and my Google Drive password will be attached so the missing chapters can be accessed. This book must get out. There are so many more chapters to add. This outline is a great start. I have to organize the rest of the chapters and add them in little by little. I plan on spending today working on exactly that, but I'm not feeling very well. Thank God the kids aren't here this weekend, so I can rest. I called tomorrow to cancel our tentative plans for a meetup. When I spoke to her, she said, girl, that doesn't sound like the flu. You want to go to the hospital? That didn't immediately alarm me. I just need some rest, I told her, and quickly got off the phone. But why can't I get my doctor? Why won't he pick up the phone? I don't know. I called Sean from my bedroom, where I'm lying in my bed. All I could think about was the kids, my babies who are with this monster, that man that I now suspect of having done this to me. Sean picked up with an air of superiority in his voice that let me know it was too late for me. He spoke confidently into the phone. Hello? I screamed at him, you bastard. I have your effing children. What are you talking about? The kids are with me, he replied with a mocking innocence. There's literally nothing I could do. I could only ask, did you ever love me? Instead of answering the question, he responded, the most important thing to me in the world is loyalty. I couldn't believe it. I had to ask, even though I understood. What the F does that mean? With the same feigned innocent, he mocked him. Is something wrong? He's going to continue this game to the bitter end. I asked one last time, how could you? Again, with the narcissism I had now come to despise, he responded, how could I? Do what? I gave you everything. You went to someone else. You left me just like everybody else did. You asked, how could I? How could I what? I yelled, look what you did to everyone around you. There was only anger in his response. So you're saying everyone leaves because how I am and you were going to expose me? He had me burglarized. I knew it. I shouldn't have threatened him. I should have just published a book. I'm going to die like Heavy D, like Biggie, like Pop, like so many others. And it's because he is a monster, plain and simple. Before hanging up, I simply say, that's not the only copy, you F. Then I shoot out a group text. I let everyone know he got me. Then I call 911. As I sit here waiting for the ambulance, I am writing this chapter and praying that I make it to the hospital. I don't feel like writing anymore. I might not be around to see it in print. It's okay. I'm sitting it out. He won't get away with this. I will have to say my final words. Sean Combs will get exposed even if I lose my life doing it. My kids have always been my most cherished possessions. I want the world to know that, but more importantly, I want them to know. And that is the end. And this book basically answered a lot of the questions that we all had. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, share. It would be greatly appreciated. And I don't have anything to say. And I believe it. I really believe these are her words. And in due time, hopefully it will be confirmed. Thank you. Take care. Be safe. And I will see you in the next video.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, so basically her producer died from pneumonia. So I think she died from pneumonia. I gotta look at it. How did she die? Porter. it say pneumonia. So her producer died of pneumonia, or her boyfriend died of pneumonia, and she was writing that book. She was writing some notes or whatever she was writing, and she died of pneumonia. So yeah, man, that's crazy. Did he do it? Did he not? Did he do it? That boy Diddy probably did. No cap. That's too much coincidence, man. That's crazy. I ain't gonna say he guilty, but man, that don't even look good. That look like he guilty. I mean, oh, yeah, if it was anybody else, they would have called us guilty. You know what I'm saying? So
The Michigan Department of Corrections and Michigan State Police are investigating after the death of an inmate at Alger Correctional Facility. According to a spokesman for the MDOC, staff at the prison were called for emergency medical care for Draquan Glover on June 18th after a physical altercation with another inmate. We're told despite life-saving efforts, Glover died the same day. The MDOC said through their initial investigation with MSP, they found no weapons had been used in the fight with the other inmate, but did not mention anything more toward what the cause of death may have been. It is currently unclear who the other prisoner was or if they are facing possible repercussions.
You know the hustle, you keep getting in front of you, just can't flip it. You ain't really got your